Chapter 445. The disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace finally regained their senses and dared to sneak into the tunnel. They shouted at Chen, "Where did you come from? You are so arrogant. Do you really think that the Purple Cloud Palace has no one to back you up? You barged in without asking for forgiveness. That's fine. How dare you kill Wu Pan? Do you know how much you have sinned and how much trouble you have gotten yourself into? It's fine that you gave up your life. If you dare to cause trouble again, your soul will be suppressed by the eye of the sea for hundreds of years. In the future, you will be reincarnated as an animal." Why would Chen listen to his nonsense? Although he knew that the old man was trying to lure him into the divine sand passage and use the divine sand array to ambush him, he knew that Chen was very capable. Seeing that he was being noisy, he used the Milky Way's arcane power to draw out a strand of qi from his voice. He used the art of victory loathing to control his body and kill everyone around him. Then, he went straight into the divine sand array. At this moment, screams could be heard in the tunnel. Yang Li, who was wrapped in Chen Ang's sword ray, heard the screams and murmured, "This is senior brother Su Fang, this is junior sister Zhao, this is Deacon Huang." Every time he said a name, his face turned paler. He was moved by the ruthlessness of this senior. Chen Prince Jiao Li was still angry and sad. He said softly, "He is seeking his own death. How reckless!" Suddenly, he shut his mouth in fear and did not dare to speak any more. Ling Sha was curious and asked him softly, "Why did you stop talking?" Prince Jiao Li was silent for a while and said, "The scream just now belonged to a deacon in the palace that I know. He is very respected in front of Aunt Dong Xiu and is very powerful." Ling Sha thought for a long time and remembered that the voice should be Deacon Huang that Yang Li mentioned. Before Chen could reach him, he was already killed. Chen Ang's ability to kill a group of Purple Cloud Palace disciples in the array without even moving his hand or his sword had clearly frightened him. Chen Ang's status had also changed from an ignorant thief to a figure like the patriarch of the evil path who had invaded the Purple Cloud Palace and a figure like a giant of the evil path. He was on the same level as the sect leader of the Mount He cult, who was famous. Prince Jiao Li knew what was good for him. Seeing this, he quickly gave up and stopped teasing the great ancestor lest he get annoyed and kill him with one slash. After manipulating that foul-mouthed person to kill all the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace who wanted to harm him in the passageway, there was no one to control the great divine sand formation. Chen released the magic power of the heavenly river, which stretched for 3,000 miles and froze the entire passageway of the divine sand. Finally, when Chen raised his eyebrows, the guy he hated pulled out his sword and killed himself. At this moment, everyone in the Purple Cloud Palace was shocked. Hui Zhu and the two phoenixes were shocked. Chu Feng was cultivating in seclusion, the golden-bearded slave was nowhere to be found, and the three phoenixes and Dong Xiu went out to attack Chen Ang. Everyone else rushed out of their palaces. The two phoenixes shouted, "What is going on?" A disciple stepped forward to add fuel to the fire and told the story. In their story, Chen was like a demon who coveted the Purple Cloud Palace, the Pearl Palace and the Celestial Palace. He broke into the palace and killed them, not mentioning the fact that the three phoenixes wanted to harm him. Only Hui Zhu secretly called the most honest disciple, Long Lizi, over and found out the truth. The two phoenixes were furious. "Do you really think there is no one in the Purple Cloud Palace?" They wanted to pack up their treasures and fight with Chen Ang. However, Hui Zhu stopped them and said, "Put down your flying sword first. Let me go up and greet that fellow Taoist and ask about the truth." The two phoenixes respected this kind mother the most, so they could not do anything when she stopped them. She said, "Mother, they have come to fight, how can we be kind?" But seeing that Hui Zhu was persistent, she had no choice but to put away her flying sword. The 3,000 miles long passage of divine sand was created by Chu Feng using the Earth Palace golden stamp that ancestor Lianshan had hidden. She used 10,000 years old iron, coral, gold and jade to refine the divine sand at the bottom of the sea to build the 3,000 miles long passage of divine sand. She set up countless spells and restrictions and connected it to the eye of the sea to form a great formation. With the 3 ladies of the Purple Cloud Palace constantly replenishing it, it was very powerful. If ordinary cultivators entered, they would be killed by the formation and the invisible divine sand, turning into ashes in an instant. But to Chunong, this divine sand formation was too crude. The 49 formation tools inside were of the unorthodox level. Although they were powerful, they did not conform to the laws of heaven and earth. They were much weaker than the yin and yang dust formation of Ame. But the materials used to refine the invisible divine sand were ordinary, and the magical techniques and restrictions were also ordinary. The invisible divine sand was very powerful to the people of the unorthodox sects, and even the juniors of the righteous path, but against someone at Chen Ang's level, it would be completely restrained. Under Chen Ang's feet, he could see the entire array in just a short while. It was laughable that the Purple Cloud Palace still relied on this array. But now, Chen Ang was sitting cross-legged on the 49 jade pillars in the array. The divine sand was rolling and eroding under his feet, but it couldn't do anything to him. The 3 people in the sword gleam saw it, but the other 2 did not know how powerful it was. Only Yang Li did not know all the key points, but he had been in the passage of the divine sand for 20 years and knew how scary this formation was. When he saw Chen Ang using the invisible divine sand to wash his feet, he shouted, "Could it be the real bodies of the 3 celestials of Ame?" Third Princess heard him and said proudly, "My master is a rogue cultivator of the Central Plains. Although he is also from the orthodox mystic door, he was not born in Ame." Chen Ang looked at the entire formation and said with a smile, "Chu Feng really thinks she's smart. This formation of hers can only block those whose mana is weaker than hers. If the mana is 10 times stronger than hers, it will not be able to stop them. Instead, it will be taken advantage of." He then said, "This formation is crude, let me fix it." Xian immediately stood up and shouted, "How can there be no water when there is sand?" After saying that, the sword gleam behind his head did not move, but released the mana of the Milky Way that was getting stronger and stronger. It turned into a headless Milky Way and flooded the entire passage of the divine sand. Hui Zhu was about to step into the passage, but she was forced out by the Milky Way. He had been in the sea for a few months, and the mana of the Milky Way had refined a lot of Tiani water. When it was released, it was like a torrential river of water. With the wonders of the mana of the Milky Way, it meandered on the passage of the divine sand. The mighty mana flowed and eroded, and gradually seeped into the key points of the divine sand formation, controlling the formation. In just a few breaths, the entire formation that Chu Feng had painstakingly built was dismantled. Hui Zhu, Feng, Yang Li, and the others were dumbfounded. Hui Zhu, Feng, Yang Li, and the others were dumbfounded and in disbelief. Although there is only the invisible divine sand, and I can't demonstrate many powerful formations, I happen to have a formation that is the true teachings of the Milky Way formation. I only need water and sand to set it up, and it is the most suitable for this situation. The Purple Cloud Palace wants to refine me, so let me set up this formation and trap her entire palace. I will slowly refine it for you to see." Chen Ong laughed out loud. "The yellow river of 9 bends is 10,000 miles of sand, and the waves and wind come from the ends of the world. Now let's go straight to the Milky Way, to the house of Altair and Xinu." This was the yellow river of 9 bends formation. Chapter 446. As the river of magic power merged with the passage of the divine sand, it actually usurped the Purple Cloud Palace's protective formation. It turned into a surging yellow river, carrying mud and sand with it. It pierced through the eye of the sea and surrounded the purple cloud palace. The foundation of the magic array that Chu Feng had set up was cleansed by the river. It turned into a 9 bends heavenly river. It contained countless murderous intent and was much more dangerous than the original divine sand array. Chen Ong sat in the eye of the array and presided over the entire array. He had already placed the 3 people beside him in the array, each of them suppressing one eye of the array. The long river swallowed the endless water power in the eye of the sea. With the support of the array formation, Chen Ang's efficiency in swallowing the seawater and refining the first sky water had increased by many times. The power of the array formation was constantly improving. At first, the 2 phoenixes could see a river that was about a mile wide. Before long, it had expanded into a boundless river. The speed at which it whittled away at the purple cloud palace's restrictions also increased by several times. Presiding over the array was also a kind of exploration and cultivation for Chen Ong. Not to mention, with the support of the array, the efficiency at which he refined the true water increased by 10 times. On one hand, the array carried the might of heaven and earth. The power of swallowing essence qi was not something that a person could compare with. On the other hand, the purple cloud palace was located in the eye of the sea. It was a blessed land that swallowed endless seawater. The 9 bends yellow river formation occupied the entire eye of the sea and gradually controlled the suction force of the eye of the sea, surrounding the purple cloud palace even more tightly. If not for the protection of the Golden Mother restriction, it would have been broken through long ago. The group of people were suppressed under the formation. Even so, with Chen Ong presiding over the array, it still whittled away everyone's essence qi. Large amounts of water vapor surged out from the East Sea, strengthening the power of the array formation, causing the long river to become more and more condensed and boundless. Chen Ong then used his own transcendence energy and the array formation to temper it. Every hour, he would be able to temper a drop of heavenly true water, and the speed was still increasing. This unexpected gain made Chen Ong very satisfied. He smiled and said, "So, the Eye of the Sea actually has such benefits. No wonder the Golden Mother of Sky can collect a gourd of true water even though she doesn't cultivate the true water technique." The true water of Tianyi was the only one among the 7 types of innate water that was refined from a large amount of water vapor. It didn't have the requirement of being soft and pure like the true water of Yin, nor did it have the true water of Xianming, which had the true water of annihilation that could freeze the 3 realms. It only took the water of the 4 seas, which had the principle of being thick and vast, which could accommodate all things. In the world, only the 4 seas, which were responsible for absorbing and spitting seawater, renewing the water quality, and ensuring that the 4 seas did not dry up, were the most suitable for refining. Furthermore, Chen Ong had used the formation to aid in his tempering. It was no wonder that he had improved by leaps and bounds compared to when he was in the Central Plains. When Chen Ong stepped into the formation, Prince Jiaoli was still in despair. Even he had heard of the vicious reputation of the Purple Cloud Palace's godly sand passage. When he saw Chen Ong bringing him into the formation, he even lost some of his soul and could only curse in a low voice. However, when he saw Chen Ong killing people and killing all the people in the formation, he was completely dumbfounded. He only saw Chen Ong as someone like the extraterrestrial demon or the evil sect's grand ancestor. When Chen Ong activated the 9 bends Yellow River formation and started to whittle down the Purple Cloud Palace, he no longer had any other thoughts. There was only one thought in his mind: peerless demon, an unparalleled evil path magnate. When Chen Ong asked him to guard the formation's eye and preside over the formation to attack the Purple Cloud Palace's restriction, he no longer showed the hopeless and desperate expression, nor did he have any respect for the Purple Cloud Palace. Instead, he worked even harder than Third Princess Lingsha and Yang Li, driving the formation even more ferociously. The women of the Purple Cloud Palace, who were trapped in the formation, were even worse off. When Feng heard the slanderous words, she even wanted to teach Chen Ong a lesson. She did not stop the people in the palace from taking matters into their own hands and luring Chen Ong into the godly sand formation to suppress him. In her opinion, Chen Ong was just an unorthodox individual immortal who had his own mana. He killed the palace servants, so he deserved it even if he was refined to death by the godly sand. Even if Huizhu wanted to dissuade her, it was only because she was compassionate. She did not want to offend others because of Feng's mistake. When Chen Ong killed all the people in the formation, Feng was already furious. At the same time, she was secretly shocked. His ability to kill people through the formation was even better than hers. However, this realization only made her even more embarrassed. She thought to herself, this person's mana is very powerful, but even so, he still dares to bully us? Big Sister's mana is 10 times stronger than his. If it wasn't for my closed-door training, I would have come out to teach this arrogant brat a long time ago. Just when Feng was hesitating whether to wake Chu Feng up and take down this enemy, Chen Ong launched the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation. Under the erosion of the yellow sand, the Purple Cloud Palace's restriction was exhausted. At this moment, Feng no longer had the thought that her big sister was 10 times stronger than this person. She could only use her mana to control a few magic treasures to resist the erosion of the formation. Even with the protection of the Golden Mother's restriction, the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation's remnant wave seeped in. It was like invisible sand being carried by the true water, passing through everyone's protective mana. Grains of rough divine sand wore down the Purple Cloud Palace's people's protective mana. Waves of invisible true water penetrated their bodies and melted their primordial spirit. Under the attack of the water and sand, the power of each was increased by 100 times. In just a short while, a disciple with a lower cultivation base had his mana worn out. His primordial spirit was destroyed and he died. Feng felt that her mana was being worn out by the divine sand carried by the true water. Furthermore, this kind of wearing out was directly attacking the source of her mana. It was a real waste of her years of hard work. She also felt that her primordial spirit was slowly being worn out and eroded by the true water. Seeing a disciple using up his mana and primordial spirit before him and his soul returning to the netherworld, she couldn't help but feel sad. She couldn't help but shout, "We have already surrendered, why is that person forcing us? Is he really going to let the people of the palace die? How can he still have the face to ascend to become an immortal and achieve Tao after doing such a vicious thing?" She then shouted at Chen Ong, who was sitting in the celestial river, "Just because of a small argument, you killed my palace's messenger. You're still not satisfied with doing such evil deeds, yet you came here to kill everyone in the palace. How can there be such logic in this world?" Chen Ong also revealed a strange smile. He pointed at Purple Cloud Palace and asked, "I don't really understand either. Purple Cloud Palace saw my disciple's beauty and wanted to kidnap her. I killed her, so it's only right for you to come here to seek revenge. Plotting against someone, so it's only natural for someone to kill you. You wanted to lure me into the formation and use me to plot against me, so I killed them all. This is all reasonable. Then why is it unreasonable for me to eliminate all of you who have tried to harm me several times in order to nip it in the bud? I don't understand. I killed your palace's messenger, the rogue immortals who helped me, and the disciples who controlled the formation? Why did you have to risk having your entire palace killed by me and provoke me? And you even said that there's no logic in this world? Could it be that the fruits of your 100 years of hard work and generations of good fortune were destroyed by me in a day? Can you still reason with me in the netherworld?" When Chen Ong spoke, his tone was indifferent. However, when he stopped and smiled, the dense killing intent that came from his bones made Feng Erfeng, who was talking to him, feel a chill down her spine for no reason. She was extremely shocked. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, in order to not have to reason with you, I have no choice but to kill all of you until your souls are scattered, never to reincarnate." Chapter 447. The Purple Cloud Palace was hidden deep in the Earth's crust, and the bottom layer was the ancient Earth-lung poison fire, which was the seabed Earth-lung fire layer of Dutian fire. Jinmu built the palace here with the intention of suppressing it, but when Chunong wore down the prohibition in the palace, it loosened the prohibition to suppress the poison fire, which allowed Chunong to see a flaw. Chunong used the water to attack and grind it through a weak spot in the Earth's crust, drawing out a firepower. He used the formation to grind the corals, golden jade, and 10,000-year-old refined iron veins in the eye of the sea with the 9-turn Yellow River formation and poured them into the fire vein. He also drew the astral wind from the surface of the sea and ignited the demonic spiritual fire. The wind blew the fire and refined it into pieces of 5-colored godly sand. Several pieces of 5-colored godly sand poured into the formation, increasing its power. Under such a two-pronged attack, the prohibition of the Purple Cloud Palace had been broken through by Chunong to the front hall. He was still in the mood to forge many kinds of godly sand to add more methods to the 9-turn Yellow River formation. At the same time, he used the Earth-lung poison fire to refine the flame of the eternal lamp to supplement the nature of this magic weapon. Only the people standing in the front hall of the Purple Cloud Palace were in a state of panic, feeling that a disaster was coming at them every moment. At first, only the shapeless godly sand could hold on, but later, Chunong drew out the Xian-yin poison fire and refined many kinds of godly sand, such as shape elimination, soul refining, mind confusion, bone erosion, absolute spell, impermanence, 5 elements, Xian-yin poison fire, and Jinmu. He also used the Tiani true water as the source to derive many kinds of true water such as Xianming, soul scattering, spirit flowing, poison melting, silk winding, and weak water. Under the support of the 9-turn Yellow River formation, how could they still hold on? The evil disciples in the palace were all dead. The ones who were left were those who usually had self-respect and were not fated to die. Their bodies were drawn by the formation and their mana was depleted. Only their mortal bodies were left. Their bodies could not help but float out from under the memorial archway. They were swept into the long river and fainted. When they woke up again, they found themselves stranded on a deserted island nearby. Chunong had spared their lives. Yang Li manipulated a part of the formation in the formation core and trapped several of her best friends. She was eagerly looking for Lu Rongbua, but she couldn't find her for a long time. She couldn't help but beg Chunong to slow down the formation so that Lu Rongbua wouldn't be killed. Chunong shook his head and said with a smile, "You don't know karma. Ever since I became the calamity of this Purple Cloud Palace, the heavens have responded to me. Lu Rongbua, Long Lizi, and you are not fated to die, so you each avoided this calamity. As for the 3 phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace, their fates are intertwined, each of them will have to face the tribulation. Although the golden-bearded slave and Hui Zhu are also involved, they have not committed any evil deeds. After suffering this tribulation, they will have even more benefits in the future." After saying that, he activated the formation and broke through the front hall of the Purple Cloud Palace in 4 hours. When the 2 phoenixes and the rest saw the endless yellow sand falling outside the water-repelling archway in the front hall, they couldn't help but feel hopeless. They closed their eyes and waited for death, but they heard an angry voice behind them, "How dare you!" The 2 phoenixes only saw a blur before their bodies had already changed positions and escaped into the golden court of the Purple Cloud Palace, which had the strongest restriction. When they opened their eyes, they saw Chu Feng's angry face. Only then did they know that Chu Feng had taken the escape talisman to save them. However, the others couldn't save them in time, and all fell into the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation. They were swept by the formation and suppressed under it. Only Hui Zhu and Long Lizi were taken into the formation core by Chunong, so they didn't lose consciousness. Although Chu Feng couldn't suppress her anger, she still forced herself to be clear-headed. She called the two phoenixes to her side and asked about the cause and effect. When she sensed that the restriction in the palace was broken, she came out of seclusion in shock. The three ladies grew up in the Purple Cloud Palace, so they believed in the restriction in the palace more than their own mana. There had never been an enemy who could break through the restriction. The three ladies obtained the legacy of the Purple Cloud Palace and bought a huge family business. They could be considered as the top sect in the East Sea. Usually, there were countless rules for their disciples to visit them, and they wouldn't allow anyone to humiliate them. Of course, they only restricted outsiders and used all kinds of rules to show how big their sect was. They wanted others to give in and show respect, but they didn't restrict their disciples. It was probably a form of being high and mighty, like an emperor in the secular world, belittling other people's character in order to highlight his own prestige. This was fine normally, but when it came to people like Chun Ong who didn't like the rules but had the bigger fist, even if he pretended to be an idiot, he would still be humiliated. They dared to do this because of three reasons. First, the three ladies had the mana of the rogue immortals. Although it was only an unorthodox skill, in this vast land outside the sea, even people like Ancestor Xiankong and the young man of Mount Tianqian had to give them some face. Second, the restriction left by the Golden Mother of the Purple Cloud Palace was closed, thinking that no one could break through it. Third, it was the 3,000 miles of divine sand passage. Chu Feng used magic as a sacrifice, so she was confident that no one would be able to return. The three ladies were short-sighted and had never seen a second-generation disciple of Ame who had the rare treasure of Heaven Mansion. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such thoughts. The Ame disciples were supposed to teach them a lesson after 30 years. This time, the three phoenixes got into trouble. Before the tribulation 30 years later, they provoked someone like Qin Ong, who used his unparalleled power, divine sand cultivation, and restriction to crush all the trump cards that the three ladies were so proud of. He taught them how big of a mistake they had made. After listening to the two phoenixes' explanation, even though Chu Feng controlled her mana, she couldn't help but frown. She said softly, "This person's mana is probably at the level of a heavenly immortal. He isn't weaker than the Golden Mother who left behind the Purple Cloud Palace. Also, he doesn't talk reason with us. If the three phoenixes were slightly weaker, he might really send the entire palace into reincarnation." After saying that, she started calculating. After a while, she heaved a sigh of relief. "Our fate is not over yet, so we still have 30 years to rest. This time, it should be more daunting than dangerous. Let me use the divine shark sting to resist him, and see if I can use words to ease the tension. Without the three phoenixes, we might be able to get him to help us." Qin Ong stood under the waterproof archway in the front hall of the Purple Cloud Palace. He admired the number 1 celestial abode of the Eastern Sea, the Pearl Palace that had been at the bottom of the sea for 10,000 years. The palace was a few hundred miles deep and had a total of 63 floors. There were pearl palaces everywhere, golden halls, jade steps, jade forests, and exotic plants. There were countless treasures hidden here. Other than the jade nectar, banana coral paste, jade cherry purple marrow, the rest were rare food from the deep sea and elixirs that were more than 1,000 years old. Ordinary people could live forever after consuming it. In the backyard of the Purple Cloud Palace, there were countless corals, pearl shells, and seaweed. There were also countless celestial herbs and elixirs. Most of them could not be found in the mortal world. Although Chen Ong had only broken through the front hall, the treasures that he had reached took up a small half of the Purple Cloud Palace. Chen Ong did not hold back and started to collect them without hesitation. Because he was afraid of damaging this magnificent scenery, he even slowed down the attack of the Yellow River of 9 Rivers formation. He could not use many of his destructive method. Chen Ong smiled. "Coincidentally, I want to open a celestial abode in the eye of the Southern Sea. The Purple Cloud Palace probably has gathered 80% of the elixirs in the sea. This saves me a lot of hard work. He made up his mind. He did not want the Purple Cloud Palace, and he did not care about the treasures in the palace. He just wanted to take a portion of these elixirs with him and transplant them when he opened another celestial abode. Chu Feng did not know that he had already treated these elixirs that were more than 1,000 years old as his own. While the attack of the Yellow River of Nine Rivers formation had slowed down, Chu Feng managed to protect herself and arrived at the front hall where Chen Ong was. Chapter 448. Chu Feng stepped into the front hall and placed half of her body in the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation. It was only because of the Purple Cloud Palace's formation that she wasn't completely dragged into the formation and suppressed. This was also why she was confident in facing Chen Ong. Otherwise, she would never dare to face a strong enemy like Chen Ong alone. She used the escape talisman to protect herself and carefully walked to the front hall. She saw a young man stepping on an undulating river of yellow sand. There were 12 water-colored spirit lights hanging behind his head. He had a temperament that didn't match his age. His eyebrows were like swords, and his eyes were like stars. His bottomless eyes brought Chu Feng a rare sense of pressure. When she looked at the young man's bone structure, even Chu Feng couldn't help but exclaim, "What a beautiful bone structure! He was born with extraordinary talent." Although the young man's spells and treasures were extraordinary, Chu Feng could still see that he hadn't become an itinerant immortal. Although an orthodox Xuanman's Jiaxiu's cultivation was at the peak of the cultivation of qi, it was like cutting melons and vegetables in front of a rogue immortal from an unorthodox sect. However, cultivation was the foundation after all. Chu Feng felt that this person was probably not the great medium who set up the formation to trap the Purple Cloud Palace. It was most likely his disciple or relative who was controlling the formation on his behalf. As soon as she thought of this, she felt a little strange. She was asked to submit to someone and let herself be trampled upon. It really put this proud and arrogant Grand Palace Master, who had gradually become delicate over the years, in a difficult position. On the other hand, she thought that if she captured this person and held him hostage, she might be able to force his master to give in and make an oath not to make things difficult for the Purple Cloud Palace. Chu Feng had been taught by the three phoenixes over the years, so her temperament wasn't as pure as before. She was more scheming and the way she did things was a little extreme. Therefore, when this thought appeared, not only did she not reflect on it, it was like a demon in her heart was becoming more and more shaken. She thought, "This young man is so talented, has many treasures, and was given the important task of controlling the formation by that person. He must be very favored by that person and is a trusted disciple. Now that they have come to invade the Purple Cloud Palace, it's difficult to fight them. This is a rare opportunity. If I can capture him, I can force that person to stop and make him apologize to us. I'll explain to him and resolve the karma between him and the three phoenixes, and this tribulation will be over." Once this thought sprouted, it grew wildly like weeds until she could no longer hold it in and shouted, "Which sect are you from? How dare you offend my Purple Cloud Palace? Is this a place you can come and go as you please? You attacked the immortal mansion, ruined the scenery in my palace, and killed my disciples, so you can stay here. I would like to ask your master, what is the crime of allowing his disciple to commit murder?" When Chen Ong saw a woman with a cold temperament suddenly appear in front of him and say these words, he just smiled slightly and was about to suppress her. He didn't care what she asked, and two sword lights separated from the back of his head one after another. The sword light in front was vigorous like angry thunder, and the sword light in back was only attached to the shadow of the sword light in front. It was silent, and there was only a trace of water that was hard to see, soft and long. This kind of sword art intertwined with strong power and soft softness was the way of yin and yang. How could Chu Feng expect this? She only had time to use many magic treasures to defend herself. At the same time, she hurriedly turned her flying sword and divine shark sting to block, but they were all cut by the fierce sword light in front. Most of the magic treasures left by Jimu were damaged, and she couldn't defend against the sword light in the dark. Had it not been for the first phoenix's invisible demonic barrier that had automatically activated to protect its master, and its innumerable strands of invisible silk had entangled the waterscape sword, Chen Eng's sword would have pierced through its scapula and suppressed it with a backhand formation. Even if she was lucky enough to escape this calamity, Chen Eng's heart wouldn't waver in the slightest. This was because this sword strike had allowed Chen Ong to see through her, which meant that it would only be a matter of 10 sword strike. It wouldn't be able to cause any waves. Chen Ong raised his eyelids and glanced at her. Another sword light appeared behind his head, and the waterscape sword that was like flowing water became like golden threads. It divided into countless small sword threads and passed through the thousands of soft threads formed by the invisible devil barrier. Chu Feng didn't know that she had met a Real Lord, so she hurriedly shouted, "Senior, please hold back. I have something to say." However, Chen Ong only pretended that he did not hear anything. 2 sword beams forced Chu Feng back, and finally, millions of sword threads pierced through the top of her head, sealing and restraining her primordial spirit. The formation under his feet moved, and she was suppressed in the eye of the formation, together with Hui Zhu and Long Lizi. At this moment, Yang Li, who was in charge of the center of the formation, saw this scene and could only smile bitterly. She mumbled, "This is the great palace master of our palace. She seems to be here to ask for peace with Senior?" Chen Ong stood at the side and continued to pretend not to hear her. Until Yang Li begged again and again, he then said indifferently, "Why should I beg for something that I can get with my own ability?" Yang Li was stunned when he heard this. He had a deeper understanding of this senior's character, but he still remembered the benefits of Chu Feng, so he pleaded, "Senior is so mighty, how can the people in Purple Cloud Palace not know what's good for them? They have already been defeated to this extent, so how can they still be reserved? Senior doesn't need to beg. No matter what you fancy, as long as you give a sign, they will definitely give it to you." Chen Ong raised his eyelids and sneered. "Do you think I'm talking about spiritual medicine and treasures? Is it something from Purple Cloud Palace?" Yang Li couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Then could it be?" "I'm talking about peace," Chen Ong said calmly. "Why should I talk to her? If I want something, I can just get it myself. After today, Purple Cloud Palace will be in my hands, and their lives will be in my hand. Why should I bother to talk to her? Does she deserve it?" Yang Li was a little unhappy when he heard this, so he plucked up his courage and said, "Senior, are you afraid that you will lose face by using force? Do you think I will bully the weak and occupy the Purple Cloud Palace immortal residence?" Chen Ong asked with a smile. He saw that Yang Li's expression was ugly, but he didn't dare to refute him, so he shook his head and sighed, "It's my business to be impartial. Whether I handle things fairly or not is up to me. What does it have to do with them? Whether I handle things fairly or not is up to me. How can I let them speak? If she wants to talk to me, she will have to scheme and scheme against me. If she sees that I am soft-hearted, she will bully me and accuse me of a crime. Then, she will ask the seniors to uphold justice and reduce her own punishment. Instead, she will convict me of attacking the palace gate without permission. Then, they will end up with a punishment of 3 cups of wine. If she sees that I am tough, she will dawdle and pretend to be pitiful. In the middle, there will be Sanfeng and Dongxiu who might not be convinced and pester me in every way possible. If it was someone with the same ability as me, I wouldn't lack this bit of effort to settle disputes with him. But the 3 women of the Purple Cloud Palace are just itinerant immortals. Are they worthy of me spending so much effort on them? I might as well just crush them. Whether they are good or bad, I will handle them. Isn't that simple and easy?" Chen Ong looked at his expression and nodded with a smile. That's right. The decision and punishment of this matter will be handled by me. Chapter 449. After saying this, Chen Ong ignored her. Seeing that Yang Li still wanted to say something, he became impatient, not to mention the three phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace. Do you think you, Yang Li, have a lot of respect in front of me? I'm not your master or grandmaster. I don't have so much time to comfort you. It's not your turn to restrain me. He then shouted, I see that you have a lot of free time. I'm busy polishing the Purple Cloud Palace's restrictions here. Over at Yingzhen Island, Sanfeng and Dongxiu are about to arrive, and there are also exquisite people like Su Feinyang waiting for them. Take this banner over and ask them. If they agree, wave this banner. The formation will naturally change. As he said this, a yellow flag with two lapels rose from the long river under his feet and flew into Yang Li's arms. Yang Li had no choice but to leave. He stood on the flag and looked at the passage of divine sand that had turned into a yellow river, wondering how to cross it. Unexpectedly, as soon as he thought of this, the flag in his hand responded, and a wave rose from the long river under his feet, carrying him to Yingzhen Island. The three phoenixes waited for Chen Ong for a long time, but he did not come. When they received a message from their disciple, saying that the enemy had reached the door, they hurriedly rushed to Purple Cloud Palace with Dong Xiu and Su Feinyang. Unexpectedly, as soon as they got off the conveyance light, someone on the island asked, Are you the three phoenixes and three palace masters? Looking straight ahead, they saw Yang Li standing on the veranda used to welcome fellow celestials and asking her. The three phoenixes always disliked Wei Rong, who was always alone and only had peace with Long Lizi and Lu Rongbua. Seeing that he was not friendly and that everything was not going well today, they were a little annoyed by his question and said coldly, It's you? Why are you the only one on the island? Where's Wu Pan? And Toddler Crutch Duda, Peach Blossom Nun, and other Taoists? Yang Li said calmly. A senior Chern came and said that the three palace masters found trouble with him and wanted to plot against him. Wu Pan was not pleasing to the eye, so he killed him. The three phoenixes were furious and shouted, How dare he do this? I haven't punished him for killing my messenger, and he came to kill me again. How could second sister tolerate it? Even if Erjia is able to endure it, Lai Guai Tuchuo is a capable loose immortal expert. He has always dared to stand up for me, and he is loyal to his friends. A few days ago, he even shared the same hatred with me. Why didn't he make a move? Yang Li sighed and said, Toddler Monk did make a move, but he was no match for his opponent. He was cut into two at the waist by that senior. The three phoenixes were so angry that their eyes almost popped out. They gritted their teeth and said, How dare you? With the Peach Blossom Divine, Nun Li Yuyu and the help of many fellow Taoists, even if the head monk couldn't defeat them, how could he lose his life? Yang Li sighed and said, The celestial nun of Peach Blossom, Li Yuyu, was also severed by the flying dagger divine net and killed with a single sword strike. He did not wait for the three phoenixes to question him further and continued, and Lang Shaoxian, all the rogue immortals on this island, except for Ling Wei So who begged for his life, were all killed. Senior brother Su, junior sister Zhao, Deacon Huang and the others tried to lure him into the formation to frame them, but they were also killed. When the three phoenixes heard the first part of his sentence, they were still in the mood to be angry, but when they heard the latter part, they were simply stunned. Other than shock, there was also suspicion. They murmured, How could there be such a person? When they saw Yang Li's calm expression, they turned hostile and scolded, Nonsense. They are all dead, why are you still alive? Only Dong Xiu, who was slightly interested in Yang Li and was cunning and calm, saw Li Yuyu's broken flying dagger and the remains of the divine net. She pointed it out to the three phoenixes and said, I'm afraid what Wei Rong said is right. This time, we have attracted an extraordinary killer. Su Feinyang was also very shocked. She thought to herself, what a ruthless person, and what a vicious sword art. There are many prohibitions on this welcoming immortals island, and they have the right location and the great divine sand formation behind them, but he still managed to kill so many people. If it wasn't for the Purple Cloud Palace, I'm afraid the three Phoenixes' sisters wouldn't even need to think about revenge. It wouldn't be difficult for them to have their entire families killed. Such a killer that appears once in 1,000 years, I must never offend him. In the future, if I plan to provoke the people of a May sect into provoking him, I wonder how much help he can provide me. But I must not offend the three Phoenixes either. After all, as long as the Purple Cloud Palace is here, no one can do anything to them. I must think of a way to befriend both of them at the same time. Seeing that Su Feinyang did not speak for a long time, Yang Li helplessly asked, "Is that goddess Wan Miao?" Su Feinyang smiled and said, "What's the matter, Marshal Niece Wei?" Yang Li heaved a sigh of relief and answered, "My real name is Yang Li. Wei Rong is just a fake name. Junior Marshal Sister Lu Rongbua was harmed by scoundrels and was imprisoned in the Purple Cloud Palace as a slave. That's why I used a fake name to sneak in here, hoping to help her escape. Therefore, I'm not a disciple of the Purple Cloud Palace. This time, Senior Chen sent me to capture you. I'll explain the cause and effect here, so that when you resent me in the future, you'll have a clear reason." After saying that, without waiting for the three ladies to turn hostile, he raised the banner in his hand and waved it thrice. Behind him, the yellow river of 9 bends formation of the God's End passageway suddenly expanded, unleashing an invisible suction force that pulled the three women into it. The power of the formation had stacked up to a terrifying level. Under the constant grinding of the true water God's End, even heaven immortals would have their energy drained and suppressed if they were not fully prepared. How could the three Phoenixes and the others be prepared? Before Dong Xiu could even struggle, her flesh body was ground away, and a strand of her soul was reincarnated. The arcane energy of the three Phoenixes and Su Feinyang was also depleted and suppressed in the eye of the formation. Then, they were moved to the other side by Chenong. At this moment, other than the Golden Court jade pillar in the center of the Purple Cloud Palace, the rest was controlled by the 9 bends yellow river formation. In less than 2 days, even the Golden Court jade pillar was breached, and the 2 Phoenixes were suppressed in the formation, accompanied by their 2 sisters. The entire Purple Cloud Palace fell into the hands of Chenong. Only the golden-bearded slave escaped to somewhere unknown, which made Yang Li restless and worried about the whereabouts of Lu Rongbua, who had left with him. Chen Ong did not care where he went, only thinking that there were still repercussions from the disaster of the Purple Cloud Palace. He did not even tidy up the things in the palace, only locking the 3 Phoenixes, Hui Zhu, Long Lizi, and the others in a side hall, while he went to practice the 9 bends yellow river formation. Before practicing the formation in the Eye of the Sea, Chen Ong did not have such an idea, but after controlling the 9 bends yellow river formation to control the Eye of the East Sea for a few days, he had endless inspiration and comprehended many mysteries from it. He verified them one by one, whether it was the water eye of the East Sea, the mysteries of the water veins and ocean currents, or the ideas of turning the world into a world within the formation space. To him, this was more worthy of attention than the Purple Cloud Palace or the hidden treasures of the spirit medicine. Thus, he wholeheartedly evolved, experimented, verified, and comprehended these ideas and principles, perfecting the array formation that he had created on a whim. Other than borrowing the treasures of the Purple Cloud Palace, he also verified the structure of the formation that he had deduced. When he referred to the space studies of other universes, he opened up a cave in the formation, and even combined the wonders of the Eye of the Sea with the 9 bends yellow river formation, roughly refining the Purple Cloud Palace, the Eye of the Sea, the Earth's crust, and the 9 bends yellow river formation. This made the inhibition of the Purple Cloud Palace even more terrifying. Within the range of the Eye of the Sea, Chen Ong could trap anyone into the cave opened up by the formation with just a thought. With the gang evil chi, the divine sand, and the real water, the 5 chi in the chest, and the 3 flowers on top of the head, would be obliterated. At this time, a formation that was not inferior to the Amei mountain protecting formation, the Yin and Yang dust formation, had its embryonic form. Under the improvement of Chunong, the 9 Bends Yellow River formation would be qualified to compete with the Yin and Yang dust formation in the future. Chapter 450. The Great Formation had been operating for a month. As it was gradually being worn in, the space of the formation in the eye of the sea of Purple Cloud Palace was becoming more and more perfect. Many rough and unbearable places had been polished off. Seeing that Chunong had no intention of taking action and was still imprisoning the people of the Purple Cloud Palace, and Lu Rongbo's whereabouts were unknown, Yang Li gradually became anxious. She could not help but go to the Golden Court where Chunong was and kowtow to ask about it. Chunong pitied his infatuation and summoned him in, saying, "I know you have doubts. That day when I attacked the Purple Cloud Palace's restriction, I alarmed the golden-bearded slave. Lu Rongbo went to call him and was taken away by him to seek help from a senior in the Central Plains. I was also happy to see this, so I released the formation and let him escape." Yang Li was relieved, but she was still puzzled. "Senior, since you've already captured the 3 girls, why did you only let me eat and drink these few days? Why didn't you punish me?" Chunong smiled faintly and said, "The main character is here, how should we deal with him?" He also said to him, "Go and lift the jade pillar of the Golden Court." Yang Li panicked and said, "The Golden Court jade pillar is the pivot of the Purple Cloud Palace's formation prohibition. Before the prohibition is opened, it weighs millions of tons. My mana is weak, how can I open it?" What he said was the truth, but he did not know that Chunong had already refined all the restrictive spells of the Purple Cloud Palace with the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation. He had also added and modified many of the restrictive spells that he had comprehended himself. Even Tianyijian's mother might not be as familiar with the Purple Cloud Palace as Chunong was. Mastering the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation was equivalent to refining the entire Purple Cloud Palace. Activating any restrictive spell would only require a thought from Chunong. If it were not for the clear ownership of the Purple Cloud Palace and the fact that it involved Tianyijian's mother and Longbrow Immortal, the 2 powerful cultivators of the righteous path, Chunong would not want to offend them for such a small thing. Even if Tianyijian's mother came to ask for it, Chunong could use the Yellow River of 9 Rivers formation to keep her out of the palace. What more a mere Golden Court Jade Pillar's restrictive spell? The restrictive spell that was suppressing the Golden Court was adjusted and redesigned by Chunong. Yang Li begged several times, but Chunong ignored him. He had no choice but to use his escape technique and fly towards those jade pillars. The jade pillars between them were thick and translucent, bright like crystals. They were magnificent and dignified, beautiful beyond compare. When he got close, each of them shone brightly, illuminating the entire Golden Court. Yang Li then realized that Chunong already had a plan, so she walked closer to him. He grabbed the bottom of the pillar with both hands and lifted it up, shouting, "Quick!" That main pillar slowly rose, and gradually lifted about 3 feet off the ground. A deep hole appeared at the base of the pillar. Inside the hole was dense with colorful energy, and a strange fragrance wafted into the nose. Before Yang Li could take a closer look, a golden light flew out from the cave and landed at his feet. It was an invitation and a heavenly book. Yang Li still wanted to take a closer look, but he felt that the jade pillar in his arms was pulled by a strong force. Before he could find a direction, it closed the cave on its own. Yang Li knew that it was Chunong who was controlling it, so he picked up the 2 documents at his feet and went back to report to Chunong. Chunong took over the 2 documents and first flipped through the heavenly book. He only sneered at the end, and took out the invitation to read it. After reading it, he only sneered as well. He brought Yang Li closer to him and showed him the invitation. The invitation recorded an old incident that happened 1,000 years ago. The owner of the invitation was a wandering celestial from a different sect 1,000 years ago. He was also the former master of the Purple Cloud Palace. When he attained Tao, he was greatly indebted to Chang Mei. He originally gifted the DK golden stamp to Chang Mei, but this person still sealed the letter within the Golden Court jade pillar and left behind an invitation to record this incident. Yang Li only understood after reading this and said, "So there's such a karma in the palace." Chen Ong smiled. "Don't be in a hurry, read this one." He then sealed the front of the heavenly book, revealing only the last page to him. The owner of this heavenly book was even before Mother Earth. It was Mother Tian-yi who predicted the future event. She recorded the karma of the Purple Cloud Palace, the tribulations of the three women, the relationship between Amei and the immortal manor, and the outcome of the three women. The prophecy of the three women's fates was messed up due to the appearance of an anomaly. Chen Ong sealed it and forbade Yang Li from reading it. He didn't want to embarrass Mother Tian-yi Jean and offend this expert. He only revealed the record of Mother Tian-yi Jean entrusting the immortal manor to Amei. After he finished reading, Chen Ong smiled. "Now do you know why I didn't punish them? The master of the immortal manor, Amei, didn't send anyone here. If I punished them rashly, I would have sowed karma." The three women of the Purple Cloud Palace naturally didn't have the right to discuss the ownership of the immortal manor with Chen Ong or even their own fate. However, Amei definitely had the right to do so. It was because Long Brow Spiritual Master was still in the upper bound. The karma net that Amei had woven encompassed most of the important plots of Mount Shu. It was also the best helper for Chen Ong to find the space of the Master God. If he didn't clarify the karma of the Purple Cloud Palace with Amei, it would disrupt the plans of Amei in the future. Wouldn't he be helping the space of the Master God cover up the traces of its plan? Chen Eng's Dharma name wasn't Venerable Lei Feng, so he naturally wouldn't do such a thing. Therefore, to clarify the karma with Amei, not only should it not be vague, it should be clear. It would also be beneficial for him to build a reasonable identity in the karma net. Only then did Yang Li admire Chen Eng's clear-cut way of doing things. Even the domineering impression of him, imprisoning the three women, had weakened a little. Although Chen Ong had a bad temper, he was not an unreasonable person. Although he didn't give the three women of the Purple Cloud Palace a chance to admit defeat, he still dealt with them fairly and had his own considerations. 2 days later, Chen Ong was controlling the formation of the Yellow River of 9 Bends, collecting the massive amount of seawater from the eye of the sea to quench the Tiani true water. He also used the Holy Sand Bunch to attack the earth veins and excavate the 10,000-year-old cold iron essence from the bottom of the sea. Suddenly, he felt that there were conveyance lights coming towards the Yingzhan Island from the direction of the Central Plains in the distance. Among the 4 breaths he sensed, there happened to be Golden-Bearded Slave and Lu Rongbua. The other 2 conveyance lights were the mana of the orthodox sect of the Mystic Door. Even if Chen Ong didn't know them, he could guess that the only orthodox sect of the Mystic Door that Golden-Bearded Slave had some connections with were the 2 elders of Mount Song. They had a close relationship with Amei, and they also had some fate with the people of the Purple Cloud Palace, so it was appropriate for them to come with Chen Ong. On the other hand, the people of Amei's sect were in an awkward situation because the letters left behind by Mother Gold and Mother Earth hadn't appeared in the world. Seeing that the 4 conveyance lights were about to land on the island, Chen Ong called Yang Li over and said, "Golden-Bearded Slave has invited the 2 elders of Mount Song to persuade me. Go to the door to welcome them." After he said that, he controlled the Yellow River of 9 Bends to open up a path. After a while, Yang Li brought the 4 of them to the door of the Golden Court excitedly. He reported to Chen Ong and retreated to talk to Lu Rongbua. Chapter 451. The 2 elders of Mount Song were friends with the 3 phoenixes and the Golden-Bearded Slave of the Purple Cloud Palace in the early years. Many magic treasures they used were obtained from the treasure house of Master Lianshan on the Moon Island under the protection of the two elders. The two elders of WW still cared about their old friendship. If Chu Feng and the others were not obsessed with the supplement of the tomes of arcane, 3 ginseng of mystic, taken out from the treasure house and killed a lot of people to refine the mother and child wishful sand and the shapeless sand, the two elders might not let them face the tribulation. Even so, the 3 phoenixes and the golden-bearded slave were destined to be apprenticed to the Qingqing sect in the future. The Purple Cloud Palace had suffered a great change. The change caused by Chen Ong was obviously out of the Longbrow Immortal's plan before he ascended. But fortunately, the heavens will showed that there was still room for change. It just so happened that Jinshu Nu came with Lu Rongbua to ask for help. Qi Shuming, the leader of a Mei sect, asked the two elders to come and test Chen Ang's attitude. However, when the two elders of Mount Song landed on the immortal welcoming island, Yang Li came to greet them and opened the life gate of the 9-turn Yellow River formation. They saw a slight change in the formation. They were shocked and thought to themselves, this formation is not simple. Although it hasn't been unfolded, we can feel a trace of the same atmosphere as the Yin and Yang dust formation when we enter through the life gate. Because of the lack of maturity, the formation is far from mature, and it is not as powerful as the magical sense of life and death are like bubbles and shadows. 2 worlds are like dust, when the Yin and Yang dust formation is fully opened. However, I am afraid that the power of the formation is not inferior to that of the Yin and Yang dust formation. The Purple Cloud Palace has been refined like an iron bucket by that fellow Taoist. If he is in trouble, we may not be able to resist him. Fortunately, they did not see any hostility in the formation. Silently using the heavens design, it was also a good sign. They immediately put aside their concerns and stepped into the formation with Yang Li. Without any trouble, they saw Chen Ong in the Golden Court. Chen Ong did not have any hostility towards the two of them. In his calculations, Mount Amei was a big obstacle for him. In the future, the Master God's space would definitely mix in with the Devil Dao and Evil Spirit. He would need Mount Amei's help to eradicate those evil spirits who wished for the world to be in chaos and seize the Master God's weakness. At that time, Chen Ong would also have to put on the airs of a master of the righteous path and bully the heretical sects together with a Mei sect. He would allow the second generation of the sect to commit crimes and raise a large group of celestial descendants to specifically oppose the heretical sects of the demonic path. Other transmigrators would have to support the heretical sects to fight against a Mei sect, but Chen Ong would specifically oppose the transmigrators. He would even plot against the greatest mastermind behind the transmigrators and help a Mei sect find their common enemy. He stopped the Golden Court's restriction and personally went out to welcome the two elders of Mount Song. He cupped his hands and said, Chen Ong greets the 2 Dao friends of Mount Song. Sorry for troubling the 2 Dao friends to come from afar. I already know why you are here. The disaster of the Purple Cloud Palace was caused by the arrogance of the 3 phoenixes. The first and second phoenixes let the disciples of the palace do evil and made friends with the heresy sections. Although I have occupied this immortal's mansion, I do not have any fate with it. I still need to discuss it with the master of the immortal's mansion. The 2 elders of Song Mountain did not have any expression on their faces, but they were quite shocked. Chen Ong was so easy to talk to, which was far beyond their expectation. He also knew many secrets of the Purple Cloud Palace Immortal's Mansion. Not to mention his ability to calculate the heavens design, just his knowledge was very impressive. The 3 ladies of the Purple Cloud Palace had lived in this palace for more than 400 years. Didn't they still not know who the master of the Immortal's Mansion was? Zhu Mei came back to her senses and smiled calmly. We still have to rely on Chen Daoyou's righteousness. We are clear about this matter. It was the 3 phoenixes who acted rashly and offended you, which caused the disaster of the Purple Cloud Palace to be brought forward by 80 years. We came here to be impartial and not to make things difficult for you. One side was willing to fight, and the other side was willing to suffer. They were in cahoots with each other. Their conversation was agreeable, and they soon had a good chat. It seemed like they were in love with each other. The golden-bearded slave saw them flirting with each other. In the blink of an eye, they sold out the Purple Cloud Palace. They had the imperialistic style of dividing up the Purple Cloud Palace, and they were the victims of the appeasement policy of the two big countries that had entered the honeymoon period. This meeting could be called the Paris Peace Conference of the Ming Dynasty or the Cairo Conference of the Cultivation World. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel sad. He slammed the table and shouted, "Seniors, why are you forcing me? I invited the two seniors of Mount Song to seek justice for my Purple Cloud Palace, so why are you splitting up the treasures of the palace with the enemy of my Purple Cloud Palace? Even though I, the golden-bearded slave, have weak magic power, I am loyal. If you guys are forcing me like this, so what if my soul is destroyed?" Chen Ong and the two elders of Mount Song looked at him calmly, and Chen Ong went straight to the point. "Golden-bearded slave, I know you aren't convinced, but do you know that this Purple Cloud Palace has a previous owner? It's the old residence of Mother Tian-Yi, Great Master Lien Shan. It's where an itinerant immortal Mother Earth avoided the calamity 1,000 years ago. The three women of Purple Cloud Palace were the maids of Mother Earth in their previous lives, and you were also an attendant of the palace in your previous life. That's why you have this 500 years of fate. 500 years later, there will be disciples of Mother Earth, the old masters of Purple Cloud Palace, Qi Lingyun and Zi Ling, who will come to take over the immortal abode. Also, the cause and effect of Mount Amei's long-brow spiritual master being entrusted by Mother Earth and Mother Gold to take over Purple Cloud Palace is recorded in the books left behind by the predecessors. When he finished, he showed him the heavenly book and the invitation. Golden-bearded slave was speechless. Chen Ong then moved the three women of Purple Cloud Palace, Hui Zhu, Long Lizi, and the rest into the Golden Court. He showed them the heavenly book and the invitation, and told them the reason. The three phoenixes offended me, so I only needed to deal with them myself. Even if I killed all three of you, others could only say that I'm overbearing and a killer. But aren't all the itinerant immortals and unorthodox sects from overseas like this? Zhen Hai wanted to kill you guys and snatch Purple Cloud Palace, so he was killed by you guys. On the other hand, the three phoenixes wanted to kill and harm me, so even if I got rid of your entire palace, others wouldn't be able to say anything. However, I took into account that you guys still had a sliver of conscience, other than the mother and child Rui Divine Sand that harmed the lives of many living beings. I wasn't willing to kill you guys. However, Purple Cloud Palace had another karma that implicated the two experts of Mount Amei to run around and pray for your lives. I originally wanted to send the three phoenixes to reincarnation, but with Senior Zhu and Mei persuading you guys, I let you guys off this time. The Divine Sand Passage has already been destroyed by me, and the 500 years of fate between you guys and Purple Cloud Palace has been shortened by 50 years because of refining the Divine Sand and 30 years because you offended me. It's already over, so what do you guys want? Are you still going to occupy the immortal abode and tangle with Purple Cloud True Lord Amei, then wait for a chance to take revenge on me, or are you going to listen to Amei's persuasion and let go of this karma? When Chen Ong finished speaking, he sneered. Let me say this first, if you guys annoy me again, I'm afraid I won't be so nice the next time. Chapter 452. The women of Purple Cloud Palace read the document left behind by the former master of Immortal Mansion and looked at each other in silence. Except for Sanfeng, who was a little unhappy, First Phoenix and Second Phoenix knew that they were meat on someone else's chopping block, and understood that they had to bow their heads when they were under someone else's roof. With a flick of his sleeve, Chen Ong released the restriction that imprisoned everyone, and shouted at Sanfeng, hand over the restriction tablet that imprisoned Lu Rongbo's primordial spirit. Sanfeng looked left and right, but no one in the Golden Court paid any attention to her. She could only obediently hand over the palace tablet that imprisoned a wisp of Lu Rongbo's primordial spirit. Chen Ong took the palace tablet and waved his hand. A speck of golden light escaped from the palace tablet and burrowed into Lu Rongbo's head. Lu Rongbo felt her primordial spirit lighten, as if a heavy shackle had been removed. There was an indescribable sense of lightness, and she couldn't help but shed tears of joy. When Chen Ong saw that Sanfeng was looking at Lu Rongbo with great hatred in her eyes, he couldn't help but sneer. He looked at the two elders of Mount Song next to him, and sure enough, they looked at Sanfeng with disgust and indifference. The people of the righteous path in this world were not the kind and pedantic people of other world. Or rather, any qualified cultivator would have a resolute determination that had been tempered and tempered thousands of times in their hearts. Righteous path masters who weren't decisive enough and didn't kill ruthlessly enough, even if they couldn't learn it in this life, they should have tempered it in their next. If they still couldn't train that kind of decisiveness after being killed and reincarnated, they deserved to sink into oblivion and never be freed from the great Tao. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the righteous path or the unorthodox path, they were absolutely decisive when it came to killing. Even the thieving Baldies of the Buddhist path were swift and decisive when it came to killing the unorthodox path. There were even people like Venerable Ju, who were ruthless and who struck terror in the hearts of the unorthodox path. In this regard, Amei was even more decisive. Before they made up their minds, they might show mercy, but when they directly acted, they were ruthless and merciless, which suited Chen Ang's taste. The second and third generation of Amei sect's juniors displayed this style to the extreme. As for the two elders of Mount Song, although they were not disciples of Amei sect, they were not far from each other. Moreover, Lu Rongbo was the grand disciple of Immortal Jilo, a direct disciple of Qing Qing sect, while Zhu Mei was the future sect leader of Qing Qing sect. Although their lineages were different, they were still related to each other, so they could be considered as Zhu Mei's juniors. Although Sanfeng is fated to be reincarnated in Qing Qing in the future, she is an evil creature in this life. How can Zhu Mei watch her make things difficult for Lu Rongbo? Chen Ong saw all of this. He opened his hand and shot out a beam of golden light with the palace token. The three phoenixes could not fight back at all. He severed a wisp of their primordial spirits and sucked them into the palace token. The first and second phoenixes were furious, but how could they dare to stop him? Chen Ong handed the palace tablet to Lu Rongbo and said, "Your fate in the mortal world is not over yet, and you still need to cultivate diligently for another 30 years before you can ascend to the immortal world. But because of my interference, Immortal Ji Li's tribulation of tempering you was interrupted. So, I will set another tribulation for you. Sanfeng has captured you as a slave, and it is a heinous crime. I will imprison a wisp of her primordial spirit on the palace token and cast a restriction. With the palace token in your hand, you can punish her with just a thought. This restriction is called the 10 Directions Hell's Reincarnation Prohibition. It is a Buddhist restriction. With the palace token in your hand, you can cast her into the cycle of reincarnation, or suck her primordial spirit into the illusion of hell, or inflict all kinds of torture on her. Once the 30 years are up, the palace token will immediately release her primordial spirit. This is the tribulation I have set for you. If you can make her turn over a new leaf, you will be able to accumulate a lot of external cultivation, and once the 30 years are up, you will immediately ascend to the immortal world. If you punish her out of selfishness and torture her, you will have your own karma in the future. If within the 30 years, you will also have a part of the consequences of the sins she has committed. The degree of control will be your tribulation. Take care of yourself." He then said to Sanfeng, "You captured her as a slave for 20 years, so I will let you be a slave under her for 30 years as compensation. Are you convinced?" Seeing the hatred in Sanfeng's eyes, he only smiled. Other than Sanfeng, Erfeng and Chufeng did not take the initiative to make things difficult for him, so Chen Ong did not punish them. Long Lizi, Huizhu, and the rest did not fight with him either. Other than the mastermind Sanfeng, whose primordial spirit was sealed by Chen Ong and made into a slave, those who wanted to harm him in Purple Cloud Palace were all killed by him, so Chen Ong simply let them go. Purple Cloud Palace was no longer fated with them, and it was Amei's property. As for whether Amei temporarily borrowed them or chased them out, it had nothing to do with Chen Ong. Purple Cloud Palace's restriction was broken by Chen Ong. Although it was temporarily protected by the Yellow River of Nine Rivers formation, it was still Chen Ang's formation. In the future, it still needed to protect his immortal abode, so naturally, he could not rely on it. In the future, if Amei's immortal abode still needed Chen Ang's formation to protect it, it would not be good. Zhu Mei asked Chen Ong to stay and help them refine the restriction. Yang Li, Lu Rongbua, and the rest could only stay and help them. Purple Cloud Palace was one of the 9 immortal abode. The palace was hundreds of miles deep and was divided into 63 levels. There were pearl palaces, golden halls, jade steps, jade forests, and strange plants everywhere. However, because it was located in the eye of the sea, although the 2 elders of Mount Song were good at the restriction, it was not as powerful as the Golden Mother's restriction. They saw that Chen Ong broke the restriction and captured people as easily as taking something out of his pocket, and the passage of the divine sand was destroyed. If they were the ones in charge of the establishment, the Purple Cloud Palace would probably be emptied by the demons from overseas before Amei opened its abode. So the 2 elders of Mount Song asked Chen Ong to refine the Purple Cloud Palace into one, forming a formation to suppress the eye of the sea and prevent the demons from spying on them. Then, they lent the Purple Cloud Palace to Chu Feng and the rest for 30 years to preside over the formation, waiting for Amei to come and get it. Yang Li also promoted the core restriction of the formation. On one hand, it was to prevent Chu Feng and the rest from harming the Purple Cloud Palace. On the other hand, it was to temporarily use them to cultivate and avoid disaster. 30 years later, Lu Rongbo would have the hope of ascending. Chen Ong activated the 9 Bends Yellow River formation, but it was magnificent. It could easily transform into a paradise in the eye of the sea. The 2 elders of Mount Song thought that it was a different world than Amei's Yin and Yang dust formation. It was more suitable for the environment in the sea, and it was a match made in heaven with the eye of the sea of the Purple Cloud Palace. They thought to themselves, Chen Daoyou's formation makes the Purple Cloud Palace even more magical. In the future, when disciples avoid disaster and cultivate, it will be better than the original restriction. After pondering for a while, he asked Chen Ong, fellow Daoist's formation technique is vigorous. Combined with the Purple Cloud Ci, it can best protect and conceal the palace. There's another one that regulates Yin and Yang and benefits the Eastern Sea. Every day, the eye of the sea takes in and spits out seawater 10 times more, extracting the dark and murky air from the bottom of the sea and rising to the surface of the sea. It nourishes countless elixirs and seaweed, allowing fish and beasts to multiply. It's a great service to heaven and earth. The Purple Cloud Palace has the ability to suppress the Xian Yin poison fire in the earth's crust, but it can't compare to fellow Daoists' method of drawing water to merge fire, reconciling the yin and yang of water and fire, purifying the poison fire, and nurturing the living beings in the sea. If fellow Daoist is able to set up a formation and complete the eye of the sea's ability to swallow and spit out, the people living in the palace will be blessed by the heaven and earth. There will be little calamity, and fellow Daoist will also be able to obtain 10,000 external merits. Furthermore, as the sea eye benefits the East Ocean and living beings grow, this external technique will definitely be endless. I wonder if fellow Daoist can unite the entire palace and lay down this formation? Chapter 453. Chen Ong was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that the two elders of Mount Song would make such a request. As for the incantation of the tactical matrix, he naturally didn't care about it. Although the formation to suppress the immortal mansion was mysterious, it was just a variation of the formation of the Yellow River of Nine Bends. For example, the yin and yang dust formation of the Amei sect was suppressed by the Tai Ching immortal talisman, and it evolved into the destruction of life and death. Later, it suppressed the Purple Cloud Palace, and it couldn't even protect the sea surface. Even if someone spent thousands of years to slowly figure out one of the variations of the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation, it would only be 1/50th of the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation, not to mention if there were any geniuses who could figure out the entire trick from the formation that was fixed in the eye of the sea. If anyone thought that they would be able to grasp the weakness of Chun Ang's formation and come to him for a lesson, Chun Ang would let them know the terrifying power of the complete Yellow River of Nine Bends formation. Beyond the Nine Bends Heavenly River, 10,000 miles of sand, turning the Yellow River into the Heavenly River, and the planets into the eternal sands, evolving into the galaxy of the universe. Of course, the formation was still evolving. However, Chun Ang calculated that if he really gathered all 7 types of innate true water and went to the starry sky to search for the stars outside of Mount Shu, he would refine them into the formation and use them as godly sand. Then, he would truly have a portion of the power of turning the Milky Way into the Milky Way. Chun Ang thought to himself, Mount Amei has the yin and yang dust formation, so they may not be interested in the suppressive power of the Nine Bends Yellow River formation. I'm afraid they've taken a fancy to the wonders of refining the eye of the sea in my formation and nourishing living creatures. If the Purple Cloud Palace really has the Yellow River formation of Nine Bends to suppress it, I don't know how much the fish and beasts in the East Sea will benefit. It's just like the upwelling of seawater in the Peruvian fishery on Earth. The deep-sea nutrients brought by the upwelling of seawater will make a big fishery long ago. The Nine Bends Yellow River formation boosts the absorption ability of the eye of the sea and purifies the seawater. It also brings the seawater in the crust at the bottom of the sea, which has become dark and cold due to the nature of the dark yin poison fire, to the surface of the sea. The true fire of the sun neutralizes it, reconciles yin and yang, and turns it into spirit chi to nourish the East Sea. The mineral nutrients and turbid gas at the bottom of the sea are also exchanged with the surface. Just this alone is enough to support countless algae and plankton. To be able to have this kind of good fortune that is compatible with the heavenly Tao, cultivating in the Purple Cloud Palace in seclusion will have countless benefits. If one had to avoid a tribulation, one could obtain the blessing of fortune in the Purple Cloud Palace. Then, a major tribulation could be turned into a minor tribulation, and a minor tribulation could be turned into no tribulation. No wonder the two elders of Mount Song didn't even ask for Taoist Miao One's permission before deciding to give up 90% of the Purple Cloud Palace. I'm afraid that in return, they're willing to give me half of the spirit herbs and treasures in the Purple Cloud Palace. Chun Ang pondered for a moment. After thinking it through, he raised his head and said with a smile, "Nothing is impossible in this world. However, Purple Cloud Palace is Amei's outer palace. Is it inappropriate for an outsider like me to set up the palace protecting array?" When Zhu Mei heard the first part of Chun Ang's sentence, she was already delighted, but the second part was just nonsense. He must have thought it through before mentioning it. She only said, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry. With fellow Taoists' magic power, even if it's other restrictions, how long can they trouble fellow Taoist? Didn't Violet Cloud Palace have the Golden Mother restrictive technique in the past? Didn't you break it in 3 days? Fellow Taoist, I naturally trust your magic power." After saying that, he glanced at the other people of the Purple Cloud Palace and said with a smile, "You guys are blessed. In these 30 years, if you cultivate diligently, with the protection of this blessing, you might be able to refine the root of evil and eliminate the many hidden dangers of magic. Lu Rongbua, you must not act rashly. You must stay clear of the mortal world and ascend to the heavens in the palace. There will definitely be protection. Therefore, Yang Li and the others collected golden jade cold iron, coral pearl mother, and sent them into the Nine Bends Yellow River formation. With the help of the Xian Yin real fire and a lot of true water, they refined the divine sand. As for Chen Ong, he breathed in and spat out seawater and separated a long river. With the help of the two elders of Mount Song, he worked for 49 days and separated a branch from the Yellow River Formation to preside over the Purple Cloud Palace's restrictive spell and the Eye of the Sea Formation. Although it wasn't as powerful as the previous Chen Ang's formation, it was still much better than the original restrictive spell. It also had the ability to help the ocean absorb and nourish the East Sea, bringing countless blessings. Usually, Chen Ong and the two elders of Mount Song talked about magic and formed a good friendship. When the 54th floor of the Purple Cloud Palace merged with the formation and suppressed the eye of the formation, the surface of the sea became calm and the waves disappeared. Only a rainbow light escaped from the bottom of the sea and crossed the surface of the eye of the sea. About 10 feet below the surface of the sea, endless seawater rose from the Xian Yin part of the Earth's crust and surged in all directions. The entire eye of the sea and the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation merged together and became a fixed formation. It could no longer change. Every day, when the seawater breathed in and spat out, it silently accumulated in the formation. If anyone dared to violate it, they would be crushed by this force. After thousands of years of accumulation, even a divine immortal would not be able to escape. After the Xian Yin Qi in the eye of the sea was mixed with the true fire of the sun, it was sent to the Purple Cloud Palace to nourish the elixirs in the palace and turn them into resources for the blessed land. When cultivating there, one's heart would be calm and clear, and it would be difficult for one to go berserk. The vitality was lively, and people couldn't help but sigh in admiration. What a good immortal blessed land, the Jade Palace and Pearl Palace. Finally, Chen Ong used the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation to put away the Pearl Palace, which was filled with elixirs. Chen Ong scanned it with his primordial spirit. Many of the types of elixirs that the Purple Cloud Palace had were all here. Some rare elixirs were unique and only he had them. Knowing that the two elders of Mount Song had good intentions, he accepted them. Chen Ong thought to himself that the two elders really understood him. They knew that he didn't care about Dharma treasures. Instead, there were many natural treasures, such as weapons, musical instruments, clothes, and many other tools commonly used by cultivators. There was also a lot of thousand-year dipper, red heart broken flower, spirit consolidating glue, and so on. After the two elders of Mount Song completed the formation, they deeply admired the Nine Bends Palace. They couldn't repay Chen Ong with many elixirs for refining the eye of the sea. Because he wasn't a true lord of the immortal mansion, they couldn't give him more, so they could only compensate him in other aspects. They let Chen Ang's Nine Bends Palace gather 50% of the essence of the Purple Cloud Palace. Chen Ang's vision was even higher. He knew the origins and uses of many things in the Nine Bends Palace that the two elders of Mount Song didn't know. Moreover, in the past few months, he had refined the 9 gourds of heavenly true water in the eye of the sea. He had achieved small success in the 7 kinds of connate true water in the heavenly river Dharma power. If he wanted to achieve great success, he would need an endless amount of true water, and he needed to cultivate hard. In addition, he had re-refined the Samadhi true fire, which had absorbed the underground ether fire, the true fire of the sun, and the small success of the human spirit fire, which was the original eternal lamp flame. In addition, he controlled the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation and collected the 10,000-year cold iron, pure gold, 1,000-year pure iron, Tai pure gold, and many other metals from the Purple Cloud Palace's crust and the surrounding 3,000 miles, and sent them to the underground ether fire to be refined. This made Chen Ong suddenly rich. Third Princess Lingsha and Prince Jiaoli saw with their own eyes that after Chen Ang's trip to the Purple Cloud Palace, he turned from a lone Taoist cultivator to richer than the entire Sea Nation. One of them admired the freedom of a Taoist cultivator, and his Taoist heart advanced a step further. The other chanted in his heart, "Kill and set fire to the heavens, plunder and destroy the families, and get rich." Chen Ong put away the heavenly river Dharma power, and the Nine Bends Yellow River formation that carried the Nine Bends Palace shrank into a heavenly river and entered Chen Ang's sleeve to accompany Macho. Chapter 454. Chen Ong had seen the 5 metals that filled several storerooms. He used the formation chart to control the eye of the sea to excavate the mineral veins in the Earth's crust, and then used the Xianyin poisonous fire to refine them into 5 metals. The power of the eye of the sea was so great that it was even more abundant than that of a celestial being. Chen Ong used the formation chart to control it, and it was like there were hundreds of individual immortals helping him to mine and refine metals day and night. Among the 5 metals that he obtained, there were not many innate true gold like the Western Tai true gold, but the essence of the 5 metals was most likely everywhere. The 1,000-year-old refined iron at the bottom of the sea was even more than the smelting output of the entire Great Ming Dynasty in a year. This was because he used the underground Xianyin poisonous fire, also known as the Xianyin poisonous fire, to refine it. This fire was originally a mass of Xianyin qi before the Yuanshi period, and it revolved rapidly all year round. Therefore, this fire belonged to the nature of Xianyin, and the 5 metals that were refined also had this fire's characteristic. If he refined various kinds of instruments belonging to the Yin, the evil path, or the demonic sect, it would naturally complement each other and enhance the nature of the magical weapon. If he refined a pure yang magical weapon, there was the suspicion of damaging the nature of the magical weapon, and he would get half the result with twice the effort. Since Chen Ong practiced the Nine Bends Yellow River formation, he realized the wonderful combination of theory and practice, and the wonderful effect of advancing by leaps and bounds. Only then did he understand why so many experts in Mount Shu wanted to refine a magical weapon to restrain the demons that they could easily eradicate. There was not only the mystery of cause and effect, but also the key to cultivation. Magical weapons and spiritual objects had their own supernatural powers, just like a cultivator. Refining a magical weapon was equivalent to creating another kind of cultivator, and it was a different kind of cultivation process. The unaffiliated disciples of the mystic door had to refine flying swords from nothing. Even if their masters and seniors had pointers, they would never do it for them. Moreover, most of the sects in the world took sword refining as an entry task, and made their disciples spend decades or even hundreds of years to refine a flying sword spiritual embryo. How could there be no reason for this? Chen Ong thought that the refining of flying swords was originally an entry skill, and the refining of flying swords was also a cultivation. In the process of refining flying swords, the disciples of the sect were equivalent to personally training a sword cultivator, so how could there be no gains? And the masters and seniors often refined magical weapons. Not only could they use the magical weapons to carry and transfer some karma, they could also weaken their own tribulations, and they could also learn and practice by analogy. The magical weapons that they refined themselves were also several times more powerful in their hands than others. Chen Ong could not care less about the former, but the latter was in line with his usual way of seeking Tao. Knowledge, exploration, experimentation, and innovation. In this world, the Milky Way was only the surface. Chen Eng's real way was the way of creation. In this way, there was a new possibility for those who ascended to immortality to shed their magical weapons. Chen Ong calculated and verified that when his primordial spirit touched the mysteries of Nanming Li Fire Sword, Qing Sua Ziying, 9 Condensation Cauldron, Guangqing Golden Ship, and many other treasures, it triggered an additional spiritual opportunity and was deduced from the mysteries of heaven. Chen Ong sighed, No wonder those old monsters were not moved, and only sent their disciples to take the treasures, so there was this layer of calculation. Chen Ong manipulated the mysteries of heaven and used his primordial spirit to pry. Because he had suspicions beforehand, he was able to find some clues. Qing Sua Ziying is a rare treasure from ancient times. Since ancient times, it has been used by someone to shed the karma of the prosperity of the righteous, so it fell into the hands of the Long-Brow Saint. Later, when the Long-Brow Saint ascended to immortality, he left behind these two swords. He actually entrusted his karma with Amei to the swords, so that he could successfully ascend. This sword has the great karma of Amei's prosperity and protecting it. The owner of the sword has to bear this responsibility, or else it will reverse his fate. It was the Long-Brow Saint's plan that the green Sua fell into the hands of the Ancient One. Not only did he cut off most of the Ancient One's fate, but he also took his fate after he was killed. It's really the Amei twin swords. In the hands of Amei, it is fate, but for others, it will be a disaster. The Nanmingli Fire Sword, the Guangqing Golden Ship, the 9 Condensation Cauldron. No wonder Guangqingzi, Dharma, and Saint Emperor Xianyuan left these treasures so easily. I'm afraid that their karma, obsessions, and even their great wishes were entrusted to these treasures. Not only can this help them share their karma, but it can also help them choose the owner of the treasures in the human world, fulfilling their obsessions. If I take these treasures and benefit from them, I will have to bear the karma left behind by them. Haha. If I want to ascend, or if I don't want to bear the karma of protecting the Han dynasty and preventing the Manchurian Qing from invading, I can also refine a treasure that can bear the karma and give it to someone in the human world who wants to protect the Han dynasty, so that he can bear the karma for me. This seems to be beneficial to both sides. It is also beneficial to the person whom I transfer the karma to, but to those who want to ascend, it is an extremely vicious poison. I'm afraid this is also the reason why Amei exterminated the heterodox and demonic sections. Once they do this, the karma of the treasures, flying swords that are used to slay demons, will continuously gather in their hands. Amei used the fate of these treasures to complete this tribulation, slay demons, and make Amei prosper. The owners of the treasures also took this opportunity to escape the karma of heaven, achieving a win-win situation. That is why Amei unscrupulously collected all kinds of treasures, immortal abodes, and promoted it. Countless righteous seniors who ascended borrowed Amei's hands to join the tribulation and wash away the karma left behind by ascension. Amei is the white glove of the righteous mystic door. In this tribulation, Amei is the main character. It is the key that the immortals of the spiritual immortal realm and even the heavenly realm borrow Amei's hands to understand the karma of the human world. Spreading it, the immortal abodes, the immortal books, and even the natural treasures planted by people, I'm afraid that the seniors borrow the karma to ward off the tribulation. Thinking of this, Chen Ong touched a trace of the vein of the 500-year immortal tribulation. He was also shocked by the courage and calculation of the long-brow immortal who left Amei to collect the karma of the human world before the immortals offended each other and ended the accumulated connection between the spiritual immortal realm, the heavenly realm, and the earthly realm. There are even some sunk treasures. For example, if there is a Buddhist monk who wishes to enlighten all the unorthodox sects and enter the righteous path, his early cultivation will be smooth. But in the end, he can't enter the Western Pure Land even if he reincarnates thousands of times and accumulates great merits. Even the 4 great bodhisattvas can't become Buddhas because their great wishes haven't been fulfilled, let alone the Buddha in the human world. At this time, he needs to painstakingly refine countless Buddhist treasures, build countless temples, and even establish sects to pass on the Taoist orthodoxy. Only then can he transfer the karma and great wishes to these external Taoist orthodoxies and use them to ascend. In this way, he will be cheating his own disciples, and the treasures he left behind will also be sunk costs. Everyone has to pay the debts for him, and only after he has paid off his share can he ascend. Some have received too much of the legacy of the seniors and are destined to lose the chance to ascend. They can only stay in the human world, such as the Red Staff Immortal of the Great Eastern Wasteland, the 6 Freaks of the Universe, and some ancient immortals of the West Kunlun. Too sinister. Those righteous mighty figures of the mystic door who have ascended are too sinister. Chen Ong exclaimed, even if the Lord God is as smart as a ghost, he still has to drink the water that those immortals wash their feet with. If the Lord God dares to covet those treasures. Ha! If there is really a time traveler who collects treasures and uses his ability to predict the secrets of heaven to collect the Nanmingli fire sword and the 9 condensation cauldron, then there will be a good show. Chapter 455. Chen Ong calculated and thought at the same time. Finally, he pushed the fate of Shu Mountain to the level of the spiritual immortal realm. He was sure that even the mighty earth spirit in Shu Mountain was not as clear as him about what was behind the net of karma in the human world. This website's new domain name was K1XSW. It was the largest free romance Chinese website. Come quickly. On the surface, the main characters of this tribulation were the second-generation disciples of Amei. Behind the karma of various mighty figures also surfaced. Chen Ong sighed for a while and thought to himself, other than the karma of the Golden Mother sect, the 5 Lakes Narcissus, Master Lianshan, and the Amei sect, the true foundation of Purple Cloud Palace is the karma of suppressing the Sea Eye of East Sea and protecting the living beings of East Sea. If they cultivate blindly and don't take on this responsibility, they will exhaust their good fortune and lose their fate with Purple Cloud Palace. Even without Amei, the 3 phoenixes will definitely suffer because of their actions of building the divine sand passage and killing the living beings of East Sea. Not only did they not take responsibility, but they also caused evil consequences. On the contrary, I used the Yellow River of the 9 Bends to suppress Purple Cloud Palace and refine the Sea Eye to benefit East Sea. Not only did I help Purple Cloud Palace fulfill its fate, but I also became the second successor of Purple Cloud Palace. If Amei didn't help the living beings of East Sea while suppressing Purple Cloud Palace for 1,000 years, when my Yellow River of the 9 Bends to accumulate more merit than them, the fate of this place will fall into my hands. If they didn't repay me with the 9-story palace, this palace will be fated with me after 100 years. 500 years later, if Amei doesn't give Purple Cloud Palace to me, it will suffer. Of course, Amei will definitely calculate the karma of this. Even if they are still ignorant now, they will definitely be able to calculate it after 3 years. 3 years later, my fate and Purple Cloud Palace's fate will be connected. Amei won't give up Purple Cloud Palace. If it was a side palace before, now that it has the fate of East Sea, this is the key resource for Amei's prosperity. With this fate, it can protect one person to ascend every 300 years. They will never dare to offend me, who will be the leader of the loose immortals of the eastern and southern seas in the future. According to their usual practice, they will definitely want one of Z or Yun to be my disciple, so that they can inherit my karma. As long as the situation remains the same, I will be the person that Amei will try their best to befriend. I will be the decisive factor for them to inherit the fortune of the 4 seas. As for Mount Amei, it would also become my white glove. Due to the entanglement of karma, they would have to help me in some major matters that were related to me. If you go one level deeper, you can play chess with Mount Amei like Guangqingzi. Chen Ong followed the cause and effect and found that after the trip to the Purple Cloud Palace, as he had predicted in the past, they had chosen to side with the Amei sect. He was even more surprised that he had the possibility of using Mount Amei as a chess piece and a tool like Guangqingzi in the future. When other transmigrators came to the Shushan world, they dug up treasures everywhere and colluded with the unorthodox sects to go against Shushan. Only Chen Ong scattered treasures everywhere, colluded with Amei, and persecuted the unorthodox sections. He wanted to be a senior of the orthodox path. Now, he wanted to use Ame as his own tool and chess piece. He wanted to control this general trend and use it as his chariot to gallop. Chen Ong stood on the cloud and looked down at the four seas from the sky. As far as the eye could see, the sky was unfurled and the boundless sea was surging with waves. The gulls and herons flapped their wings, making people feel a sense of heroism. He made up his mind. Not only would he seize the opportunity to capture the main god, but he would also take root in this world and participate in the future conflict between the heavens and humans. He would explore the truth of the great Tao of this world. Looking at the countless divine gold and true gold in the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, Chen Ong had the thought of refining them into treasures to verify the many truths of the great Tao that he had comprehended. At the same time, he discovered and learned new things. True gold and divine gold were inanimate objects and had no value if they were not used. Chen Ong was not a miser who collected wealth and piled it up in a treasury. He had always thought that things that could not be used by him had no value. With this thought in mind, he waved his sleeves, and another figure appeared on the celestial river under his feet. It was Fairy Lady Wan Miao, Su Feinyang, who had not shown herself after being trapped in his formation. Su Feinyang was not angry after being imprisoned by him for a long time. After being released from the formation, she even smiled politely and bowed slightly to him. "I thank you for saving me, fellow Taoist. The two elders of Mount Song are the wings of Ame. If I were to fall into their hands, I'm afraid I would not be able to survive. Did fellow Taoist come to the East Sea to search for secrets? I have some good friends who live in the East Sea. I can introduce you to them. It will be more convenient for you to travel around the world if you make many good friends." Chen Ong shook his head and said, "You gave the three phoenixes ideas and made things difficult for me." However, the two elders of Mount Song discussed the karma of Purple Cloud Palace with me. It has nothing to do with the karma between us. Moreover, you did not fall out with them. Even if I hand you over to them, they will not make things difficult for you. Therefore, I do not wish to form any kind of relationship with you. What if you trick me into taking revenge for that old primordial immortal?" With his hands behind his back, Chen Ong said calmly, "Tell me the methods that Wu Tai sect used to refine a few powerful flying swords, and I will let you go." Su Feinyang's eyes darted around, and many ideas came to her mind. She did not take Chen Ang's warning to heart. However, she was the smartest one. If she was not trapped by the vengeance of the primordial immortal, she would not have ended up like this. With a smile, a golden flower appeared in her hand and fell into Chen Ang's hand. She leaped away and left a message with a smile. "Chen Daoyu, even if you don't mind, Feinyang will remember your favor. We will meet again in the future. I only hope that Chen Daoyu will not reject me next time." Once the golden flower fell into Chen Ang's hand, it turned into many words. They were the most ferocious flying swords refined by Wu Tai sect, the Sky Demon Fairy Slaying Sword, the 100 Spirits Fairy Slaying Sword, the 5 Poisons Fairy Sword, and many other secret techniques of Wu Tai sect. Chen Ong only wanted her to leave one of them, but Su Feinyang told him all of them in order to leave a trace of friendship. Even if Wu Tai sect was scattered, this was still a backdoor method. Even if Su Feinyang's identity was special, if Fa Yuan and the others knew about it, she would still be in a lot of trouble. She might even be stripped of her title as the young mistress. Su Feinyang's willingness to offer such a generous reward showed her determination to recruit Chen Ong, but Chen Ong would never be willing to be used by her. Wu Tai sect's sword refinement method is indeed unique. It is the most powerful method of the side sect. If these flying swords were refined during the time of the primordial immortal, Ame would be in trouble. But now? Without the primordial immortal, Wu Tai sect is a bunch of useless people. Even if they were refined, it would not be a problem for Ame. Chen Ong carefully read the words on the golden flower and slowly understood. Chapter 456. On that golden flower, the number 1 sword refining method was recorded. It was the Sky Demon Immortal Slaying Sword that specialized in breaking the treasured light of the righteous path, profound Chi, and Buddhist light. It was one of the most powerful flying swords of the unorthodox path. This sword used the innate true gold to train the sword embryo, the 100 poisons 6 treasures as supplementary materials, and 18 types of poisonous insects in the world to train the sword edge with the primordial pill. One had to carve 108 formless god and demon incantations in the realm of desire to summon the formless heavenly demon from the realm of desire and refine it as the primordial spirit of the sword embryo. After the cultivation was successful, not only would there be 100 poisonous clouds to protect the user, it could also contain countless poisonous creatures into the sword, combining the 6 treasures into one. It also contained the path of refining and controlling demons. It used the formless heavenly demon and was not controlled by the heavenly demon. There were many powerful spells on the sword, which was used to counter the celestial swords of the orthodox sections. It was one of the best sword refining methods in this world. Chen Ong had comprehended the true teachings of Wutai sect before. With a wave of his right hand, he dispersed the golden flowers and thought to himself, as expected. These methods of refining swords contain the art of mastering the venomous insect's vitality embryo. Even if the true teachings of Wutai sect are not pure enough, even if they can pass the first few stages, they will be harmed by the heavenly demon when they are facing the formless heavenly demon from the realm of desire. Even though founder Hun Yuan walked the extreme path, this sword refining method is indeed something that can be used as a reference. Wutai sect's sword refining method was different from Chen Ang's. The 12 celestial waterscape sword was a pure sword that pursued sharpness and agility. No matter who it was in, it would be able to unleash the highest power of his sword skills. However, it still matched with Chen Ang's own sword skills, unlike Wutai sect's path that pursued the power of the forbidden spell on the sword. There were 2 paths. One was a godly weapon in the hands of a swordsman. Even though it was extremely sharp, it still required a high level of martial arts to wield it. The other was a godly weapon in a game. It came with powerful skills, and even a newbie would be able to unleash its terrifying power. I've comprehended many principles from these sword refining techniques. It's a good time for me to try refining a flying sword that can bear the celestial river's forbidden divine ability. Chen Ong took out some 10,000-year cold iron from the array in his sleeve and released a portion of the power of the yellow river of 9 bends to protect the entire desolate reef. He flicked 2 fingers on his right hand and a 3-stage true fire floated in midair. This translucent true fire used the Xian-Yin poison fire from the underground, the true fire of the sun from the sky as the 2 poles of yin and yang, and the spiritual fire of the human world as the balance. Under the control of Chen Ang's Milky Way magic power, it was like flowing water. With a pull, the essence of the cold iron was extracted into a huge ball. The Milky Way magic power turned into countless incantations and talismans, sealing them in the sword embryo. He then scattered the sword embryo, turning it into a foot-long heavenly river, refining the 10,000-year cold iron into true water. The yellow river of 9 bends set up by Chen Ong created a cloud tide. A strand of Tiani true water shot out from the array and turned into a strand of Milky Way. It combined with the sword embryo and refined the sword until it became invisible, leaving only a circle of transparent watercolored sword gleam. He then used the Samadhi true fire to refine the sword embryo, turning it back into a golden iron. The sword embryo turned from a tangible and tangible fine iron to a shapeless and intangible Milky Way, then to a shapeless and intangible sword gleam, returning to a tangible and tangible fine iron. This process was repeated 7 times. He used the Tiani true water, Xianming true water, first essence heavy water, Tang true water, and the other 7 types of innate true water to refine them into Milky Way prohibition. After 3 days of hard work, 7 translucent sword embryos were refined. They were Tianyi Taiyin, First Essence, Ruoshui Xianming, Azure Sky, and Light of Eternity. In the future, Chen Ong would use the Milky Way Dharma power to refine the innate true water into talismans. He would refine them layer by layer, and he would be able to refine the restrictive spell on the sword to the full accomplishment. As for now, other than the Tianyi sword embryo, which he had enough Tianyi true water to refine to the full accomplishment, Chen Ong did not have enough Milky Way Dharma power to refine the other sword. How would he have any left over to refine the swords? He might as well refine them into sword embryos and seal them, leaving them for the fated ones in the future. The 7 sword embryos were named after the 7 types of innate true water. Not to mention that each of them contained many powerful innate true water restrictive spells. When put together, they could evolve into the formation diagram of the 7 types of innate true water that Chen Ong comprehended from the heaven and earth. It was called the Tianyi Water True Form Diagram, and it could recreate the scene when the heaven and earth were born and the endless innate true water created the heaven and earth. Its power was enough to bring the entire planet of Shushan back to the calamity of the primordial flood that destroyed the world. Chen Ong did not have the intention to create such a restrictive spell. He just followed the mysteries of the heavens to refine the swords, and this was how he came up with such a restrictive spell. He silently used his primordial spirit to comprehend the mysteries of the heavens and earth, and thought to himself, "This sword can only be refined into 6. No matter who it is, if they want to refine the 7th sword, they will have to face endless tribulations. Only one day, when the mysteries of the heavens change and the calamity of the human world is about to arrive, will a fated person suddenly be able to refine this sword and use the 7 flying swords to cleanse the earth and create another era. This is the karma of my comprehension of the Tao of the Milky Way and the calamity of the primordial flood. It is the key to the creation of the next era." After refining this sword embryo, Chen Ong comprehended some of the secrets of the primordial flood and the calamity of the primordial flood. He had some understanding of the Tao of the Milky Way that destroyed the world. The mana of the Milky Way in his body suddenly fluctuated, and the endless aura of creation and vitality had an additional hint of destruction. With this experience, Chen Ong continued to refine the pole of the Tianyi True Water Banner, and when the conditions were right, success came naturally. This banner, which entrusted Chen Ang's comprehension of the Tao of water weaving to control the tides of the 4 seas, no longer needed seawater to condense into a pole. Next, Chen Ong used the essence of the 5 metals to refine a Triyong golden furnace. He threw all kinds of golden jade cold iron into the furnace, and silently used the Tao of creation. He used the mana of the Milky Way to guide the 9 bends Yellow River formation to gather the chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. He controlled the abundant power of heaven and earth to refine the restrictive spell. He refined the embryos of many treasures, such as rings, hairpins, vases, pouches, stones, arrows, dagger axes, flying knives, golden nets, round wheels, and many others. Not only did the true Samadhi fire obtain a lot of spiritual chi from the embryos of the treasures, but it also became pure and agile. It also allowed Chen Ong to verify many magical effects of the chi of vitality and the creation of all things. The magical effects of each treasure's restrictive spell was a principle that Chen Ong comprehended, and the harvest was really rich. Although magical treasures are only divided by the level of profoundness, there is no classification, but everyone tacitly agrees that large magical treasures such as towers, platforms, buildings, pavilions, ships, formations, and cauldrons are much more difficult than small magical treasures such as mirrors, spears, swords, sabers, and rings, and their abilities are much more extensive. Therefore, even though Shu Mountain was huge, only the Guangqing golden ship was worthy of being the number 1 treasure. Amei had many treasures and was rich, but only the Yin and Yang dust formation, which was suppressed by the Tai Ching immortal talisman, was the treasure of Ningtsue Cliff. It could be called the treasure of the sect. Except for the green and purple double swords, which entrusted the karma between Changmei and Amei, it was vaguely the second and third treasure of Amei. Chunong looked at the many embryos of the treasures floating in the furnace and thought, after I refine these 19 embryos of the treasures, I should also refine a large treasure that incorporates all my understanding, and even goes one step further on the Tao of creation, as a summary of the merit of creation. Chapter 457. Yes, yes. At this moment, Chunong recalled his idea of looking for a mount when he first set out to sea. After all, the dark nightmare dragon whale was a sea beast raised by the Dachong Sea nation and belonged to his female disciple. How could he have the face to take it for himself? Chunong wasn't such a shameless person, so he thought about using this opportunity to craft a Dharma treasure that could be used as a means of transportation. In the future, it would also be useful to travel to the North and South Poles. There was no shortage of such Dharma treasures in Shu Mountain. Whether it was the Jiutian Shitty Demon shuttle made by Izhou from the mystic Tortoise Palace of the South Sea, or the Green Cloud celestial mat that was taken by the Golden Bearer slave, they were all outstanding. Of course, the most powerful one was the Guangqing golden ship hidden in the water eye of the Yuanjiang River. All of them had endless uses and were excellent for traveling around the world. Of course, Chunong didn't really care about the first two Dharma treasures. At most, they were used by itinerant immortals and one or two good friends to travel around the world. Although they were comfortable, they couldn't hold many things. How could they be favored by a fan of giant ships and cannons like Chunong? Only a mighty and majestic home like the Guangqing Golden Ship was suitable for traveling in the galaxy. Chunong's idea of crafting large Dharma treasures was different from that of others. If a mighty figure like Guangqingzi wanted to craft a golden ship, he would also take the path of integrated sacrificial refining, which required extremely powerful Dharma powers and years of hard work. Chunong, on the other hand, was born in a world of science and technology. He had seen many large ships with a displacement of millions of tons and planet-sized battleship. What he liked the most was modularization and standardized construction. Even if he were to craft Dharma treasures now, he would inevitably be affected. In the end, Chunong's design was a large-scale magic treasure composed of dozens of magical treasures that looked marvelous on their own. It was so powerful that it could be said to be the most suitable Dharma treasure for attacking a mountain gate, exterminating living creatures, and destroying the earth veins and mountains. The most important parts were the primeval dragon bone, which acted as the core and pierced through the magic treasure, the hull armor, which was made up of 129,600 pieces of star magic dragon scales, the sun god's fire wings, which were shaped like 6 huge golden wings, the Yin-Yang 2 modes creation thunderball, which acted as the energy source, and the Tai 5 elements divine thunder tower, which acted as the weapon. Of course, the materials and abilities that Chunong possessed right now were not enough to complete the entire concept. Hence, the dragon skeleton was reduced to 4 times its original size, and only 1 pair of the 6 sun god fiery wings remained. The star magic-resistant dragon scale armor was reduced to 1,800 pieces, and the Yin-Yang creation thunderball was temporarily used as the energy source. Wait, I'll first make a shrunken version to verify the technology. This was a magic treasure that could only be used in large-scale planar wars. Naturally, it could not be refined by relying on the true Samadhi fire. With such a firepower, it would probably take forever to melt and refine these millions of kilograms of materials. If Chunong had not used the power of the Eye of the Sea to refine the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation, which could borrow the power of heaven and earth, which was equivalent to the mana of hundreds of individual immortals working together, he would not even dare to have such an idea. Even so, Chunong still wanted to find a place that could provide a huge amount of firepower. It would be best if there was a metal mine nearby that could replenish the materials, so that he would not have to worry about the lack of metal. If this magic treasure was refined, even if it was a shrunken version, Chunong would still dare to use it to break into a maze yin and yang dust formation. Other than the metamagnet divine light, it did not have the power of any formation or magic treasure. Even if it was the metamagnet divine light, only the north and south poles of the planet could restrain it. The Earth's crust magnetism, like the copper coconut island, could not. Other than the Moon Island and the volcano Sea of Fire, there is no other place that can provide such firepower. Chunong clapped his hands and laughed. Then, he pondered and said, "The Moon Island is far away in the wilderness of the North Pole. It is probably millions of miles away from here. It would take a long time to use the sword energy to travel there." After that, he put away the 9 Bends Yellow River formation and called his female disciple, Ling Sha, who had brought the Longjing back. He said, "I need to go to the Moon Island and make a treasure that can be used for transportation. You can travel around the Great Cheong Sea Nation first. If there is anything, you can use this talisman to inform me." He pointed with his finger, and a wisp of heavenly river Dharma power condensed into a palm-sized ice crystal that contained a trace of Xianming Dharma power. Ling Sha took the talisman obediently and said, "Take care, Master." Chunong smiled faintly and silently used his primordial spirit to pinch his fingers to correspond with the stars in the sky. With a turn of his body, he followed the movement of the stars and moved thousands of miles away from the North Pole. Like a flash of lightning, he traveled thousands of miles in an instant. Not long after, he felt a gust of hot wind. The starlight disappeared and he landed on the ground. Looking around, Chunong had landed on an isolated island covered in ice and snow. The mountain shape was abnormally steep and dangerous. One side of the island was facing the sea, so it must be a barren land near the North Pole. The sea was full of small rocks that were the size of small mountains. They collided with each other with the wind and waves, and the rumbling sounds were endless. The big fish in the sea were like giant whales that were 10 to 20 feet long. They moved in groups of 3 to 5 and raised their heads from time to time. This was the volcano of the Moon Island in the North Pole. It was the place where Master Lianshan's remains and treasures were hidden. It was also the cauldron of the Earth Orifice. The Sea of Fire was not ordinary fire, nor was it the poisonous fire formed by the Xian Yin in the earth lungs. Instead, it was the Yang fire that contained the essence of the Nan Mingli fire and the true fire of the sun. Even golden-bearded slave, who had the body of the Nan Mingli fire, and Ho Wuqing, who had the nature of fire, could not guarantee their safety. Chunong absorbed the water around the Moon Island and set up the formation of the Yellow River of 9 Bends around the island. He also let Macho swim in the formation to devour the essence of fire and fuse it with the pure water to increase her cultivation base and physique. He then released the countless thousand-year-old refined iron and 5 metals that he had collected in the eye of the sea of Purple Cloud Palace. He then used the earth fire and the true fire of the Moon Island to fuse them with the essence of the sun. He neutralized the 5 metals and the Xian Yin poison fire that contained a bit of the Xian Yin quality. This fusion of Yin and Yang improved the quality of the materials. He then used the power of the Yellow River of 9 Bends to draw upon the power of the heaven and earth to excavate the earth fire copper and 1,000-year-old refined copper in the volcanic vein of the Moon Island. He used the divine sand bundle to attack the earth's crust and grind the earth fire copper into or sand. He then gathered the true fire in the Sea of Fire and refined it into pure earth fire copper. Chunong raised the Tiani True Water Banner and used it to suppress the eye of the Yellow River of 9 Bends, doubling the power of the formation. He then used the vastness of the North Sea to suppress the might of the Sea of Fire of the Moon Island, allowing the formation to operate without being affected. Otherwise, since the Milky Way formation was of the water attribute, its power would be greatly reduced in the Sea of Fire. It would even damage the quality of the formation. He then released the true fire of Samadhi, drawing upon the true fire of the sun that great master Lian Shan had accumulated for 1,000 years. He then cast out layers of restrictions and sealed the true fire of the sun into the 5 metals. After refining 9 layers of restrictions, he spent a month of hard work to refine a pair of fire wings of the sun that were 1,000 feet long. They seemed to be made of pure gold and shone resplendently under the sunlight. At this moment, the acquired true gold that Chen Ong had refined was piled up to the side. It was the stellar devil-resistant gold. It had absorbed enough power of the stars and changed its essence. Under Chen Ang's refinement, it was divided into a piece that was a foot long and shaped like a dragon's scale. Piece by piece, Chen Ong painstakingly refined them with the power of the formation. 2 months later, they suddenly merged into one. The scales stacked on top of each other. 18,000 pieces of stellar devil-resistant gold combined to form a huge ship. The keel was 1,000 feet long, and the ship's body was incomparably huge. Many other parts came out of the 3-yang furnace. There were dozens of parts, and each of them was refined with 6 layers of restrictions. Looking at them separately, they weren't bad transcendent artifacts. Finally, all the parts were assembled into a long and narrow ship. Although it had a classical style, it had a sci-fi style from the industrial era. The ship's body had a geometric structure that couldn't be erased. Its streamlined shape carried a brand that this world couldn't understand, but was deeply imprinted in the depths of Chen Ang's primordial spirit. Now that everything was ready, he only had to wait for the storm on the Moon Island and the thunder to strike. Then, he could take the opportunity to refine the power core of the ship, the Yin-Yang Divine Thunderball. Chapter 458. The 2 pieces of divine magnetic iron were being nourished by Chen Ang's true flame. At the same time, his hands were constantly casting out many thunder talismans, turning the surrounding water and fire essence qi, as well as the natural energies of the world, into thunder talisman restrictions of yin and yang magnetic poles. These thunder talisman restrictions were inserted into the 2 Tai Chi-shaped 3-dimensional metal fish. The divine magnetic iron was the main material of the yin-yang creation thunderball. Only the special properties of the divine magnetic iron could produce the yin and yang magnetic poles and provide an inexhaustible power core. Thunder was the pivot of the changes of yin and yang, and the yin and yang magnetic poles were the most likely to produce thunder. The yin and yang original magnetic divine light produced by the restriction of the original magnetic divine iron would undergo the yin and yang transformation in the yin and yang ball, which would produce the inexhaustible power to drive the golden ship, the divine thunder of creation, which would provide the energy for the giant ship to move forward. This was the principle of the yin and yang creation thunderball. The yin and yang referred to the yin and yang magnetic divine light, and the yin and yang referred to the restriction and structure of the ball. The divine thunder of creation was the final product of the thunderball. Divine magnetic iron was mostly produced in the north and south poles, as well as in the core of the Earth's crust. These 2 pieces of divine magnetic iron that had been refined into artifact embryos were refined from a few ores that had been brought out of the Earth's core by magma when Chen Ong was exploring the fire cave of Moon's Child Island. Chen Ong had already refined the weapon embryo several months ago. However, the restriction of the thunder ball needed the heavenly thunder essence qi to advance to a higher level. Refining the yin and yang lightning talismans with the power of the Milky Way would not only take a long time, but it would also affect the ultimate power of the restriction. The yin and yang creation thunderball was the most important core of the golden ship. It had to have at least 24 layers of restriction, so it couldn't be sloppy. Fortunately, Chen Ong had predicted that there would be a storm in the North Pole in the next few days, and there would be thunderstorms that would last for nearly a month. Therefore, he left the task of refining the thunderball until now. At this moment there was a sudden gale on the sea surface, and the thunder and lightning were like dragons and snakes. With such a huge object like the golden ship here, all the thunder and lightning within hundreds of miles of the sea gathered here and bombarded the golden ship. Chen Ong took this opportunity to polish the restriction in the golden ship and absorb the heavenly thunder essence chi to turn them into divine talismans to refine the thunderball. Chen Ong stood on the golden ship. The sun god Fire Wings shone brightly in the thunderstorm. Facing the wind and rain, he spread out his huge golden wings. The thunderbolts struck the golden wings, and they slithered along the body of the ship like flood dragons. The deck, which was made of star-refining fiend true gold, was stacked together like dragon scales. Amidst the ravaging thunder and lightning, it wriggled like a living creature, and its scales were vivid and lifelike. The entire golden ship was like a rock, wriggling its body and showering in the thunder and lightning. The golden ship rose into the sky, dashing into the dark clouds against the storm. It flapped its gigantic wings as hard as it could. The feathers on the wings that were wrapped in the true sun fire glowed with a golden light, swallowing the ninth heaven thunderfire brought down by the thunder power and transforming it into many ancient golden spell symbols, refining the pair of wings on their own. The body of the ship, the keel, the stern, and even the hidden divine thunder cannon on the deck were all greedily swallowing the heavenly thunder essence chi. However, at least 90% of the heavenly thunder chi rushed into the core of the golden ship. In the ball of thunder formed by the two Tai Chi yin-yang fishes, the enormous heavenly thunder essence chi was broken down by Chen Ong into countless yin and yang thunder spell symbols, layer by layer covering the ball of thunder, and continuously increasing the number of restrictive spells. Refining an immortal treasure was a painstaking effort, and it was not something that could be done in a day. Therefore, Chen Ong was not in a hurry. Instead, he used this opportunity to comprehend the divine metamagnet light of Mount Shu and transform it into heavenly thunder. At the same time, he absorbed the 5 elements chi from time to time, transforming it into heavenly thunder of 5 elements according to his understanding, and continuously striking it out, changing the taste of the thunderball. The storm did not stop for 7 days. Chen Ong knew that it was not unusual for a storm like this to rage on the sea for a few months. If he was willing to put in some effort, he could even find a place where the storm would not stop all year round. In these few days, with the golden ship's method of swallowing the heavenly thunder essence chi within a radius of 1,000 miles, Chen Ong had already pushed the thunderball restrictive spell to the 21st layer. The rest of the work could not be done overnight, and some time could be taken slowly. Chen Ong also felt that the hull of the ship was too domineering. Fortunately, the golden ship could shrink and shrink at will. Although it was still very shocking, at least it was not as conspicuous as before. Sometimes, when he was tired of the scenery in the thunderstorm, Chen Ong would also drive the golden ship above the clouds. While refining the true fire of the sun, increasing the essence of the true fire of the sun and the true fire of samadhi, he would also enjoy the tranquil and peaceful sky, the surging wind and clouds under his feet, and the raging waves of the sea. This would also give him time to comprehend and think. Suddenly, in the surging thunderstorm below his feet, there was a ray of white light, like lightning, swimming in the clouds, until it wedged into the clouds. This ray of white light was also a little strange. Wherever it passed, the thunderbolts seemed to be attracted, intertwining and converging on the white light, layer by layer, forming a rolling and flowing sea of thunderbolts. Chen Ang's primordial spirit keenly felt that what the white light cast was an invisible power of restrictive spell, as if in this 10,000 miles of thunderclouds there was a terrifying power accumulated. At this time, his golden ship was almost completed. Because it was driven by the divine thunder and magnetic force, it was called the magnetic golden ship of creation. He did not have to worry about getting into any trouble. Instead, he had an urge to provoke some enemies, to test the power of the 12 layers of magnetic forbidden spell, 12 layers of divine thunder forbidden spell, 12 layers of divine fire and true water forbidden spell, a total of 36 layers of Tai Huang creation tribulations. Therefore, he put his hands on it, and after 6 to 8 hours, he saw some clues. This cultivator seemed to be using the power of nature to accumulate a powerful thunder technique, to unleash the power of his white light magical treasure. It was just that his ability was not good, and the quality of the magical treasure was not good. After being stimulated by the thunderbolts, it could only be used once before it was destroyed. Looking at his unorthodox magical power, that lightning magical treasure that could emit white light to protect himself was probably a treasure that he treasured as much as his life, and there was nothing on this moon-child island that was worth sacrificing. Chen-Ong thought for a while, and concluded that he was most likely here for the treasure of Great Master Lianshan in the fire cave of the Moon-Child Island. This Moon-Child Island's treasure would be opened once every 52 years, and when the time came, all sects would be allowed to enter the sea to search for the treasure. Every time the sea opened, it would only last for a day. Each person was only allowed to choose one item at a time. If there were more, it would be a spell restriction, and they would be trapped in the sea of fire. Those who did not know the details would not be able to calculate the date of the sea opening. Those who knew the details would need to have the protection of a rare fire-repelling treasure in order to go down. There were still a few years before the sea opening, but Chen-Ong had calculated that this was the period when the fire cave of the earth orifice was in a slight decline. Although the sea of fire was more powerful than when the sea was opened, it was also a lot calmer. Moreover, Chen-Ong had spent a lot of firepower to refine the gold transformation ship, so it might be more convenient to go down now than when the sea was opened. Of course, this kind of accident, even the Earth Spirit Masters could not calculate, not to mention the unorthodox magical power of the person below. He probably wanted to take advantage of the short period of peace in the Sea of Fire to break Great Master Lianshan's restriction with the Thunder Restriction technique, and go down to search for a treasure, the Heavenly Book. This kind of method that used the Thunder technique to replace the fire-repelling treasure, if used at other times, might instead activate the restriction, but at this time, first use the Heaven's Thunder to test, activate the restriction a few times to exhaust the power of the restriction, and then go down in one go. It might be fruitless. Chapter 459. Chen-Ong did not want to get involved in other people's business. So what if the person buried the treasures in the fire cave? Now, there was only one treasure left from Master Lianshan's inheritance. The fire scripture was obtained by Huowumei. The remaining treasure was the treasure that Master Lianshan used to subdue demons. It was called the Separation and Reunion Tablet. This tablet was a talisman formed by the combination of Yin and Yang. The Yang talisman was hidden in the golden boat at the center of the Yuanjiang River, while the Yin talisman was hidden here. Chen-Eng's primordial spirit knew that the Yang talisman had many karmic ties with Master Lianshan and Mountamei, as well as some karmic ties with Guangchengzi, hidden in the boat for many years. The latter karmic ties had been dissolved, leaving only the Yang talisman and Mountamei, which should have been obtained by Yu Yingnan. The Yin talisman was Master Lianshan's vow to dissolve the fire calamity of the Moon Island. It was left for Yu Yingnan to break through the fire cave and pour out the fire. Not to mention the shallow mana of the unorthodox school in the clouds, which rogue cultivator from the four seas would dare to covet this treasure. Even if they had mana to suppress the fire cave and dissolve the calamity, they would not dare to provoke the natural karmic ties of the Yin and Yang of the tablet. What did it have to do with the general trend of Mountamei? As for the fire scripture, it was entrusted by Master Lianshan to the unorthodox school in his later years. It should have been given to Huowumei, a rogue celestial from another school. However, because he coveted the Separation and Reunion Tablet, he put Yu Yingnan in a difficult position due to the entanglement of karmic ties. In the end, he lost himself in it and became her disciple. Who would dare to touch such a hot potato? However, Chen-Eng's primordial spirit suddenly moved, and he understood the mysteries of heaven. He calculated with his fingers and realized that the Separation and Reunion Tablet hidden in the fire cave had a trace of fate with him. If he entered the fire cave, the tablet would definitely come to him. This made Chen Ong feel strange. Master Lianshan had never met him, so why would he let the tablet come to him? Thinking about it, it turned out that he used the fire of the fire cave to make the golden boat, which consumed a lot of the poisonous flames that had been accumulated in the volcano of the Moon Island for thousands of years. This reduced a lot of the calamity. It could be said that he participated in resolving the fire calamity of the fire cave and contributed a little. That was not all. The fire calamity of the U-Air Island was a scheme planned by Great Master Lianshan for 1,000 years. No matter how great Chen Ang's contribution was, it could not be overshadowed by him. 1,000 years ago, he had already decided that this treasure belonged to Mount Amei. How could he simply change it? But as luck would have it, the North Pole Sea was suppressed under the geocentric fire cave of U-Air Island. This underground volcano was originally dormant underground, and its fire warmed a lot of the seawater in the North Pole. Then, the North Pole Sea swallowed the seawater, causing the North Pole Sea to transform. Due to these two factors, this warm sea area was originally a paradise for the creatures of the Arctic Sea. Tens of thousands of years ago, fate shifted and a great calamity descended. The volcano at the bottom of the Moon Island erupted, annihilating countless creatures and creating boundless killing karma. The Moon Island responded to the calamity and the fire was intense. Under the shift of the Earth's crust, the original eye of the sea was suppressed, cutting off a chance of survival for the Arctic creatures. He had to wait for Master Lianshan to dissolve the fire hole and for Moon Island to sink into the eye of the sea. Only then would he have the chance to wait for the eye of the sea to come out. But by that time, it would already be a matter of 1,000 years later. But it just so happened that Chen Ong had created the great formation of the Nine Bends Yellow River. This formation was a blessing to the four seas, and its fate lasted for a long time. It was unknown how many creatures of the four seas it could benefit. In terms of power, it was not as good as the great formation of Amei Yin and Yang dust. But in terms of fate, after refining the four poles sea eye of the four seas, it was enough to suppress a large sect. If Chen Ong established a sect with this, it would definitely be the number one sect in the four seas, not losing to Amei. With the suppression of the great formation of the Nine Bends Yellow River, the North Pole Sea eye of U-Air Island could come into being 1,000 years earlier. Combining the original geocentric fire cave and suppressing it as the eye of the formation, it could produce a warm current in the barren land of the North Pole. Within 10 years, with this formation, the creatures of the North Pole Sea could increase by 50%. After 100 years, when the sea eye of U-Air Island was formed, the warm current of the North Pole Sea eye of U-Air Island would merge into the North Pole Sea. This blessed land of creatures could increase the number of creatures of the North Pole Sea by a few times. With this kind of fate external cultivation, the four seas would be affected. All the seniors who cultivated in the four seas, and the treasured weapons that entrusted the karma of the four seas, would all be fated with Chen Ong. Even their original owners would have to give them to Chen Ong, hoping to get a share of it. At this moment, the Separation and Reunion 5 Cloud Tablet in the fire cave of U-Air Island was unable to enter Chen Ang's embrace. This was already due to Great Master Lianshan's contribution in extinguishing the fire, and the reason why Chen Ong had yet to open the sea eye. Otherwise, if Great Master Lianshan kept the Separation and Reunion 5 Cloud Tablet, his fate would be reversed, and his external cultivation would not be perfect. As for the Sun Tablet lost in Amei, with the natural fate of the Yin and Yang tablets, the one who would suffer a loss would definitely not be Chen Ong, who was fated with the Separation and Reunion 5 Cloud Tablet. Of course, if Amei wanted to give the Sun Tablet to Chen Ong would not want it. With Longbrow Spiritual Master's meticulous calculations, he would definitely take the initiative to give it to Chen Ong. With this fate, he could take a share of Chen Ang's fortune that was blessed by the four seas. Who knew if it could help the people of Amay to become immortals? How could treasured weapons compare to ascension? If they could exchange the treasured weapons for fate, it would help them to free themselves from the karma of heaven and earth. Not only would they be able to ascend smoothly, they could also increase their celestial grade. Many seniors and experts in the world would fight to do this. Now, it was also because of Chen Ang's profound cultivation that he could suppress his own fate that the loose immortals of the four seas would not be able to rack their brains and scheme to establish a relationship with him. Otherwise, when he opened up the four extremes CI to suppress the four seas, causing the destiny of the outer seas to flourish, countless powerful beings hiding in the four seas would come out. Some of them would turn into tribulations to obstruct him. Some of them would come to his aid, all 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 of them would come to his. It would also be counted in the 500-year immortal calamity. At that time, when Chen Ong attacked the islands of the four seas and opened the sea eye, there would be countless demons coming to stop him, and countless swordsmen of the four seas coming to help. It would be no less than the great calamity of the Amay sect. However, if he opened the sea eye of the Moon Island now, the movement would be so big that even Chen Ong would not be able to hide it. Under the circulation of the North Pole's fate, all the seniors and experts in the world with profound cultivation would probably be able to peek at it. At that time, it would not be up to Chen Ong himself. He would definitely be pushed by the heavens to become the main character of the calamity of the four seas. In addition to the great calamity of the Amay sect, he would also open the great calamity of the four seas and Chen Ang's sect. He would become a twin Lianhua in the fate of this world. The complexity of the calculations and the wide implications were far beyond Chen Ang's expectations. After all, who would have thought that a loose immortal from an unorthodox sect would be able to get involved in such a great calamity? It was comparable to the 1,003 calamities of the overseas immortals. Indeed, under the circulation of the heavenly Tao, fate is involved, and it is difficult to go against the will of the heavens. Even someone like me who descended from the outer realm, whose strength far exceeds this world, could not escape the calculations. In this world's heavenly Tao's net of laws, the wonders of karma can also be seen. Either I give up on opening the sea eye of the four seas, or I become half the main character of this calamity. It's really hard for me to choose. Chen Ong sighed. Why would people of my generation be afraid of schemes? I have long heard that the world of the immortal Tao has its own ingenuity of schemes. It is the most powerful in the battles between the heavens and the 10,000 world. Chen Ong is not talented, but he would also like to experience it and fight against this fate net of laws. I can take the opportunity to involve the chief god in this karma. Under this karma, it will definitely expose most of its background. This is also a good opportunity. Chapter 460. Chen Ong originally planned to release the restriction himself, thinking that the person below should be able to see it. However, he seemed to be a careless and stupid person, concentrating on collecting the Thunder Sea and did not pay attention to the surroundings above his head. As a result, Chen Ang's golden ship of fate had been suspended above for an hour, but it was too late for him to discover it. Just as Chen Ong was about to put down the golden ship to be discovered by the careless unorthodox sect wandering immortal, a colorful flowing light flew up from the thunder clouds in the sky. On the flowing light was a woman who shouted, "Who are you? Why are you spying on my brother's refinement technique?" This woman pressed down on a magic artifact that looked like a red caltrop and purposely spread her voice far away. As expected, the wandering immortal who controlled the white light heard it. The white light flew over in a panic and broke through the thunder clouds to stand beside the colorful cloud. When Chen-Ong looked at it, he was slightly shocked and thought, could these unorthodox sect wandering immortals from overseas have a better life than their kind in Middle-earth? The 2 demons that I killed at Qixia Mountain were not as rich as them, even their magic artifacts were poor. It was the same for that female immortal Meng. But these overseas unorthodox immortals not only have much higher cultivation, even their magic artifacts are more profound. In comparison, female immortal Meng is suffering too much. At the same age and fate, this girl's magic power is probably 10 times stronger than hers. In the blink of an eye, the white light dispersed and revealed a young and handsome man. He held a white iron silver all in his hand and looked at Chen-Ong suspiciously. When his gaze swept past the golden ship under Chen-Ang's feet, he was secretly shocked. His face could not help but reveal a serious expression. Even though the golden ship looked pure gold and flashy, the young man had some knowledge and knew that this magic artifact was 10 times stronger than the lightning chasing all in his hand. Under the shock, he did not dare to move easily. He bowed and asked, "I am Ruan Gang of the North Pole Divine Wilderness Reef. This is my sister Ruan. May I ask who you are? Why are you spying on my refinement technique?" Jiao Fei smiled and said, "I am a wandering immortal from Middle-earth. Just call me Chen-Ong. Because of the sacrificial golden ship, I heard that there is a sea of fire in the volcano of Moonchild Island that has the most firepower and can nourish my magic artifact, so I came from far away. After cultivating here for several months, because of the thunderstorm, he temporarily rested above the clouds. After that, fellow Taoist came here to cultivate. I saw that fellow Taoist's momentum was great and you must have something important to do, so I didn't come down to disturb you." Only then did the siblings of the Ruan family heave a sigh of relief. Ruan Gang's gaze swept over the golden boat beneath Chen-Ang's feet. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that the power of this treasure was extraordinary. A thought came to his mind, and he asked Chen-Ong, "Since fellow Taoist refined the golden boat in the Sea of Fire, I presume that this treasure is not afraid of the raging fire demon flame in the fire cave. Is it able to avoid fire and break through restrictions?" Chen-Ong snickered. "I've been waiting for you," he said cheerfully. "That's right. My golden ship of creation can split metal and break fire. It can travel freely in water and soil. May I know what business you have with me?" When Ruan Gang heard this, he believed it without a doubt and said happily, "Fellow Taoist came at the right time. Fellow Taoist, do you know that under the volcano of your island, there are many treasures refined by Master Lianshan, the leader of the Lianshan order in the past, as well as the heavenly book of remains? He even hid his own orthodoxy within. Every 52 years, the sea opens up once, and people are allowed to go down to take the treasures. The reason I refined this chasing thunder forbidden technique is to break through the restriction of the fire cave and go down to explore. If fellow Taoist's golden boat helps, there will be no need to worry." He cupped his fists and said to Chen-Ong. Chen-Ong knew the inside story better than them. Moreover, these 2 Master Lianshan was one of the 3 founding masters of the Amei sect. If they didn't know such important news, they probably didn't know that there was only one treasure hidden in the fire cave either. Risking his life to explore, but ending up empty-handed, made Chen-Ong sigh. Moreover, looking at her temperament, there was no evil, restless, or hostile air. It could be seen that she usually cultivated her mind and character, and didn't commit any killing. Even though the woman used the conveyance light to conceal her appearance, but how powerful was Chen-Ang's Dharma vision? What difference was there between this kind of light and nothing else? Their innate aptitude wasn't bad either. other than the fact that their mana was unorthodox and the cultivation method they cultivated was shallow, they weren't inferior to the disciples of the mystic door of Middle-earth. With the intention to help them, Chun-Ong cupped his fists and said, "Fellow Taoists' words are very kind, but there's one concern that Chun-Ong has to mention. This creation is unpredictable, and Master Lien Shan's hidden treasure is so precious. If there's a dispute, it won't be good." Ruan Gang laughed and said, "I know fellow Taoist can be entrusted. Don't worry about this, Master Lien Shan has already made arrangements." He also heard Ruan's charming laugh beside him. "Air Island only opens up the sea for a day every time. Even though we broke through the restriction and entered, we can't resist Master Lien Shan's restriction. Fellow Taoist, do you know that Master Lien Shan has already informed everyone that they can only choose one treasure at a time? If there's more, they'll be trapped in the sea of fire. So what fellow Taoist is worried about is easy. As long as you don't covet other people's possessions, we'll be fine." Ruan's voice was filled with pride, but from what Chun-Ong could tell, the siblings were magnanimous and didn't have any intention of harming him after they left the Forbidden Land. Everyone can choose one treasure at a time? When the gold-beard slaves of Purple Cloud Palace went down, almost all of them were taken. Is Lien Shan's face swollen? Chun-Ong laughed in his heart. In the end, Chun-Ong muttered to himself for a moment and revealed a little about the situation in the fire cave, saying, "But what if there's only one treasure left in the hidden treasure? What do we do?" Ruan Gang shook his head in disbelief. "Among the four seas, I've only heard that Air Island's sea of fire is powerful. Every time we go to retrieve the treasure, there'll be many unruly people dragging us down. I've never heard of anyone succeeding. That's why I took advantage of the time when the sea of fire was silent to forcefully break through the restriction and enter. Master Lien Shan is merciful. Every 52 years is the natural period of the sea of fire. If we go down now, we won't make things difficult for him. Me and my sister only ask for a heavenly book talisman manual to cultivate again. If there's only one treasure below, we won't take it and give it to fellow Taoist. If there's only a heavenly book manual left, fellow Taoist can just give it to us." Upon hearing this, Chun-Ong smiled slightly. He pointed at the golden ship and released the restriction, allowing the two of them to board. These two siblings boarded the golden ship. The elder brother, Ruan Gang, was still fine. He had manners when he walked. Even though he was young, he didn't let others look down on him. On the other hand, his sister, Ruan, was innocent and unaffected. She looked around the golden ship and was rather surprised. She only calmed down after her brother secretly scolded her a few times. Chun-Ong said, "Fellow Taoist, please show me the way. Let me drive the golden ship down." Ruan Gang hurriedly said, "No hurry, no hurry. You want me to use the Heavenly Thunder Forbidden spell to test the Sea of Fire's restriction. After some of its power is released, we can work together." Without waiting for him to finish, Chun-Ong controlled the golden ship to turn into a golden light and entered the Sea of Fire. The golden ship was wrapped in 36 layers of restriction. It could separate the metal and the fire as if it was traveling on flat ground. Without waiting for Ruan Gang to say anything, it had already sailed calmly in the Sea of Fire. The blazing demon flames in the surroundings surged up. They were extinguished when they were reflected by the golden light of the golden ship. There were also two sun god fire wings that opened up facing the Sea of Fire and swallowed the chi of the fire essence. Chapter 461. Even though the golden ship of magnetism was only at the initial stage, it was the culmination of Chun-Ang's Tao of creation. Even if it sank into the earth-lung Sea of Fire and roamed in the earth-core Xianin land, it would be nothing, let alone a little bit of earth-core poison flame that leaked out from the earth's crust. The surrounding true fire swept up and was flapped by the two sun god fire wings. It turned into countless tiny red talismans and stuck to the ship to increase the power of the prohibition. Chen-Ong stood at the bow of the ship and used his primordial spirit to control it. The yin-yang magnetism creation divine thunderball in the core sensed the vast chi of magnetism from the Earth's core. It started operating and absorbed it into countless magnetic talismans. In an instant, it turned into a huge amount of creation divine thunder mana. With this, the golden ship didn't need Chen-Ong to control it. It turned into a beam of golden light and separated Master Lianshan's prohibition spell to protect the fire cave. It escaped into an extremely luxurious palace. Ever since the golden-bearded slave killed the cave guardians and caused an earthquake on the Moonchild Island, the situation in the palace had changed. The once beautiful cave was filled with boiling lava. The stone door of the cave where Master Lianshan hid his treasures was closed. Ruan Gang saw the door and was so excited that he forgot everything else. It was Ruan who saw her brother's infatuated look and felt embarrassed. She pinched him in annoyance before she came back to her senses. Ruan Gang said in shame, "I was careless and underestimated the Moonchild Island's sea of fire prohibition. I thought I could break the prohibition spell and get the treasures with this little trick. Today, on Daoist's golden ship, I saw the vastness of the sea of fire. Now I know how powerful it is. If it wasn't for the protection of Daoist's golden ship, we would have to risk our lives to have a glimmer of hope. We relied on Daoist's golden ship to protect us. It's hard for us to repay you. How about this? We can take 2 treasures. Apart from the heavenly tomes that are related to our cultivation, we can give the other one to you. You can also engrave the heavenly tomes." It was also because of their good fortune that Chen-Ang's impression of the Ruan siblings increased greatly. He thought, "These 2 people's temperament is so outstanding that I'm embarrassed to let them be my test mice. Fine. I'll fulfill their wish this time." Chen-Ong shook his head and smiled. He pointed at the golden ship, and the yin-yang magnetic divine thunderball floated up from the hull of the ship. Then, he gestured to the siblings of the Ruan family and said, "Fellow Daoist, why did you say that? If not for your guidance, would I have been able to find where great Master Lianshan hid his treasures? I'm afraid that you've passed by a mountain of treasures without realizing it, and will return empty-handed. This is a matter that benefits both of us. Why must we divide it so clearly? If fellow Daoist still feels that I've suffered a loss, then give me the lightning essence you've collected to refine a magic treasure and use it to pay for the ship." Hearing this, the younger sister of the Ruan clan said somewhat embarrassedly, "The treasure of the moon or island has been widely spread among the loose immortals overseas. It's not a secret. But since Chen-Ong said so, Ruan Gang could only draw out the thunder essence energy that he had accumulated over the years, turn it into a plasma-like mass in his hand, and throw it into the divine thunderball. Chen-Ong operated the yin and yang poles of the divine thunderball, separating and combining, and decomposing the thick thunder essence energy into countless yin-yang lightning talismans, raising the level of the prohibition by another level. Just as Chen-Ong was about to operate the golden ship to break the prohibition of the stone door, the 2 stone doors suddenly opened for no reason, and slowly parted to the sides. It seems that old man Lianshan is quite tactful. He knows that the prohibition of the stone door can't stop me, so he simply let me go." Chen-Ong laughed in his heart, but said, "It seems that great Master Lianshan is taking care of us and forgave us for missing the schedule, allowing us to enter." The siblings of the Ruan family couldn't help but be overjoyed. They kowtowed to thank him, and then respectfully walked in. Looking inside, it was a large hall. The color of the stone was like jade, and the traces of various magic treasures that were left on the 4 walls in the past were all gone. On the front wall, the shadow of the great master's remains appeared. He wore a feather robe and a star crown, looking handsome and elegant, like a golden immortal Dara. He knew that although the great master didn't appear, he was still able to pay his respects, which showed that they were fated. He concluded that this trip was not in vain, and was even more delighted. Chen Ong was still waiting to see what Great Master Lian Shan was up to, but he saw Lian Shan's shadow smiling at him, and suddenly said, "Lian Shan greets fellow Taoist." This kind of behavior in the daytime made the siblings of the Yuan family confused. It was even more bizarre than seeing a ghost. Luckily, there were many such things in Shu, and they had read many stories about their predecessors, so they could still gather their thoughts in a very short time. They kowtowed and said, "The siblings of the Yuan family of the divine wilderness reef of the North Pole greet Great Master Lian Shan." Ruan saw that Chen Ong was still smiling and was shocked. She hurriedly went to pull him. But she heard Great Master Lian Shan's shadow say, "Don't be in a hurry to pull Chen Daoyu. Chen Daoyu's cultivation and age are not below mine. When he was refining treasures on the Sea of Fire, we could be considered to have known each other. His supernatural powers and mana are even better than mine. It's only because of his rebirth that his appearance is young." Chen Ong nodded and cupped his hands, saying, "Rogue cultivator Chen Ong greets fellow Taoist Lian Shan." The siblings of the Yuan family were so shocked by this sudden change that they couldn't even move their eyeballs. Someone like Great Master Lian Shan was already a legend to them. Who would have thought that this companion who walked side by side with them, who chatted happily with them, was also at the level of this kind of old immortal? The little sister of the Yuan family's delicate and cute little face deeply portrayed the state of stupefaction. Of course, she wouldn't be like the female cultivators in some novels, who stood up to complain, or turn hostile and do all kinds of actions that were said to be tsundere, but were actually stupid. She also didn't use her eyes to complain, to be persistent, and to show her cold face to show that she was delicate, noble, and arrogant. Otherwise, Chen Ong wouldn't be able to learn from those seniors, who were bewitched by beauty and soul. He could only send her into samsara with a bolt of lightning, and then learn the principles of Taoist cultivators to be cautious and respectful, and to respect their seniors. It could be seen that she couldn't be the heroine of a novel, and was only fated to be with Chen Ong in terms of cultivation. The siblings of the Yuan family didn't know that Chen Ong had these strange thoughts in his mind. They were well educated, and respectfully thanked Chen Ong for sending them in, so that they wouldn't have to go through the fire disaster. They didn't covet their previous friendship, and only treated Chen Ong as a slightly close senior. Then, Great Master Lian Shan said, "You two juniors have outstanding aptitude, and your temperament is good, so I like you very much. If Chen Daoyu wasn't here, I would indeed have the intention to entrust Lian Shan order to you. But since Chen Daoyu is willing to travel with you, he must want to train you. After all, Lian Shan order is an unorthodox school, and even I have been dragged down by it. Compared to it, it's not a good future. Chen Daoyu is from the orthodox school of the mystic door, and his mana is vaguely at the art of primordial innate deity. He's even before I learned the orthodox school of the three clear ones. He cultivates the primordial Narcissus and fire immortals, and is free and unfettered. He isn't summoned by the celestial ruler of the upper realm. It's a great fortune for you to be fated with him." Chen Ong shook his head and smiled. The heavens change early. Cultivating this kind of primordial dharma is full of tribulations, and it's difficult to get started. It's really hard to have a good ending. It's fine if I'm a reincarnated body. If they join my sect, I'll be harming them instead. Besides, it's the right way for cultivators to be fated to be apprenticed to learn Tao. Didn't the short Zhu Mei also become apprenticed to the three ancestors of Amei, Shui Jingzi, and the seniors, and later learned Tao under the two elders of Tiandu and Mingi? Chapter 462. The Yuan siblings pondered for a moment, then kowtowed to Master Lian Shan, saying, "Thank you, Master, for giving us your robes. But we admire the orthodox mystic door, and want to achieve enlightenment. Lian Shan cult is a large cult in the sea, with many complicated matters and heavy karma. We are unable to bear the burden. Thank you for your kindness, Master." Master Lian Shan and Chen Ong both had a strange smile on their faces. Without waiting for Lianshan to say anything, Chenong asked, "Do you know how grand Lianshan cult is? Even though it fell apart after Taoist Lianshan's death, it is still a large cult with many immortals and great power. Moreover, Taoist Lianshan did not appoint a cult master, so the current cult master is not convincing. If you go with Taoist Lianshan's robes, everyone will respect you and worship you as the cult master." The Ruan siblings shook their heads and refused. Chenong and Chen-ong burst out laughing. Chen-ong put away the golden boat and created 3 cloud bed. He invited them to sit and said, "You think Master Lianshan is from a different sect and became the cult master of a different sect. That is absurd. Taoist Lianshan was one of the 3 ancestors of Amei, the martial uncle of Long Brao Zhenren. Together with the other 2, Shui Jingzi and Huasanzi, they established Amei's orthodoxy. Later, Taoist Lianshan could not bear to see the other sects end up without results, so he sacrificed himself for the other sects and rogue immortals in the world, so that they could achieve enlightenment. That was why he became the cult master of Lianshan cult. In the end, he was burdened by this and died in this sea of fire." Master Lianshan nodded in the wall. "Since you were enlightened by Chen Daoyu, why would I ruin your future? Even though I broke away from the sect, I still have relations with Amei, and they still recognize me as their grandmaster." Chen Daoyu was from a distant ancient orthodoxy, so he did not accept you as his disciples. But as cultivators, we learn from all over the world, so why would we have any sectarian bias? I couldn't stand the fact that the mystic door had so many righteous people guarding the door, refusing to help the masses. That's why I broke through the door. That's why all of you should imitate your predecessors and worship Chen Daoyu as your master first. After you've learned a lot of skills from him, come and worship me. I'll teach you the 9 heavens mysterious script, and then I'll teach you the Amei orthodoxy. The siblings of the Ruan family were overjoyed when they heard this. They first kowtowed to Chen-ong and said, "Greetings, master." Chen-ong pointed at them and 3 golden flowers landed on their hand. They transformed into 2 jade books and 1 golden book. He smiled and said, "I haven't imparted my true teachings yet. Just follow the ancient custom and call me teacher." Among these 3 heavenly tomes, one of them is the One Sky Water True Form Diagram, that records the secret manual of the water technique. It contains the wonders of 7 types of innate true water, but it can't be used to cultivate the celestial river Dharma power of the primordial Narcissus. It can be considered as a copy of my basic cultivation technique. The other one is the orthodoxy of Baiyang Zhenren from the White Sun Cliff of the Wind Cave Mountain. It's best to use it as a beginner. It's called the White Sun Illustration. There are many diagrams in it, and you must cultivate them without missing a single one. The last one is my notes on alchemy, swordsmanship, and many magical weapons. In the future, you'll need it to protect yourselves when you travel the world. After Chen-ong finished, he said seriously, "But there's one thing I need to make clear to all of you." The siblings of the Ruan family kowtowed and said, "Please enlighten us, master." The heavenly tomes have karma. The White Sun Illustration is the orthodoxy of Baiyang Zhenren. Although he left it for those who are fated to learn it, you can't just teach it to them. To cultivate the methods in it, you need to swear to accumulate 50,000 external skills for Baiyang Zhenren. As for my orthodoxy, although it doesn't need external skills, and the primordial bloodline doesn't care about this, it's related to the fate of heaven and earth. It's fine during normal times, but if the heavens want to kill you and flood the world, you'll easily fall into karma. You'll control the 7 types of innate true water to destroy the world. At that time, you'll be fighting against the Great You. There'll be people holding the treasures left behind by Great You to kill you. It's fine if you're my direct disciple. You don't have to feel guilty about such a duty. But you're just disciples in name and haven't cultivated the Milky Way Dharma power. You can only stay in the 4 seas and don't go into the Great Tribulation. As for this karma, You'll have to suppress the 4 C's eye to pay it back. Lianshan gave you the 9 heavens mystic scripture, and you'll have to promise 10,000 external skills to pay it back. You'll also have to bear the karma of a Mei. Of course, at that time, the Lianshan order will have nothing to do with you. Your disciples from other branches of a Mei. When you see the Lianshan order, you don't need to care about the incense. After Chen Ong finished, he nodded and signaled to Master Lianshan. Master Lianshan called them over and gave them many instructions. Finally, he left the 9 heavens mystic scripture and listened to the siblings swear to repay by Yang Jinren and Guang Qingzi a lot of external skills. At this moment, Master Lianshan realized that the separation and reunion 5 cloud tablet had suddenly severed its karma with Chen Ong. He knew that Chen Ong wouldn't accept such a treasure, so he could only smile bitterly and shake his head. He used his primordial spirit to calculate and knew Chen Ang's plan. He smiled bitterly and said, "Chen Daoyu, why did you use me to block the disaster?" Chen Ong bowed to him and thanked him. "This is for mutual benefit. It's fine if the heavenly Tao forces me to open the eye of the sea. They schemed against me to open the great tribulation. How can I be willing? I have no choice but to ask you to help me with this. After we open the eye of the sea, those peerless experts in the human world can only be counted on you. You can also use the fate of the eye of the sea to change the tribulation after 300 years and have the chance to become a celestial." Master Lianshan shook his head and sighed. "You won't even let go of this remnant soul of mine. What can I do?" Fortunately, the matter of the North Pole of creation has a lot of fate energy. It can offset the evil karma created by the Lianshan order. I can sit in the eye of the sea for 300 years in exchange for a chance to cultivate again. I can still do this business with you." He then said to the Ruan siblings who were silently comprehending the illustration of White Sun, "You guys cultivate here. No matter how big the commotion outside is, don't move. There's my restrictive spell and Chen Daoyu's secret protection here. There won't be any danger. If you go out without permission, you'll die in vain." The 2 of them came to the sea of the Moon Island. Chen Ong released the One Sky water banner and waved out a stream of water from his sleeve. He activated the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation and started to connect the eye of the sea underground, surrounding the Moon Island. Suddenly, the 4 seas unleashed their power. The surrounding whales and Kuan fled in a hurry. Not long after, waves rose from the sea, threatening to tear the entire Moon Island apart. The Yellow River of 9 Bends formation connected the eye of the sea, causing a huge change in the Earth's crust. The underground fire had already been ignited. Thick smoke shot out from the mouth of the fire on the Moon Island, shooting straight into the sky and turning half the sky fiery red. Furious roars could be heard. The fire hole immediately increased in size. The ground near it immediately melted and became boiling lava. The boiling lava was like a waterfall, spraying in all directions. It reflected the light of the fire and gave off a sparkling splendor. It was a magnificent sight. Master Lianshan sat on the Moon Island, activating all the restrictive spells he laid down. He tried his best to restrain the explosion of the underground fire, preventing it from colliding with the slowly rising ocean. At this moment, the unorthodox sects who were alarmed by the commotion rushed over from all directions. One of them, Wang Gang, who was from the desolate Flow Reef Cave, saw a trace of Chen Ong through the changes in the formation. He shouted, "Where did this kid come from? How dare he spy on Master Lianshan's hidden treasure?" He then encouraged many others who had evil intentions like him to attack the formation and seize the Lianshan's hidden treasure that Chen Ong had obtained. Chen Ong only smiled coldly. He launched all 12 primordial waterscape swords, cutting all the unorthodox demons who dared to make a move into 2. Even their primordial spirits couldn't escape. They were considered as 3 animals sacrificed to the eye of the sea. As expected, after this calamity, the earth shook and the mountains shook. As the sea surface near the Moon Island was shattered, an enormous eye of the sea broke free from the Earth's crust and swallowed the entire Moon Island.